Jen?
Hi, Piper.
Hi, I understand we're streaming. I have a question. I got an email about public comment. Should I just
Doing
put
a
it?
sound check if you can hear me, Piper.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm guessing you were talking to me. Okay, I'm glad I did that because I didn't have my audio on. Hi, Chris. You're live.
Yes, I understand. I got an email just on my way down, and it asked about making a public comment. I'll
What's
put
the name?
that in that folder, and then I guess I'll read it if someone wants to know what the gist of it was, or it was a short one, so.
Who is it?
Employee at the Alta, Anna Roebling or something like that. I will,
I'll just call on you.
or email her and ask her if she wants to be if she wants to make a statement.
I don't see her on my attendee list, but there are quite a few folks, so I could be
Yes,
not picking out. Okay, thank you.
yeah.
This is the first time I've actually run one of these meetings from my desktop.
Is it easier or harder?
We'll find out. I don't know that I can tell yet.
Hey, Polly.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Jen, can you resend a link to the meeting to Ron Stewart, because his computer froze, and when it restarted, he couldn't find the link.
Go get a drink. I'll be back in a sec.
Oh, whoops, you couldn't hear me, Piper. Done.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't recognize his name because I don't work with him directly, but I figured it out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just gonna do a test real quick. Piper, are you right there still? Piper, I need to test something with you. Can you join me for a second here? Okay, I just wanted, just because I'm doing this differently than before. Will you let me know if you can see my screen?
I can, resolution 2021-R19.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I just wasn't sure if I could have it work off either screen.
Yep.
Thanks.
Hi all.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can everybody hear me?
Hello, colleagues.
Hi, Cliff.
Hello, Cliff, Phyllis. Hello, Harris.
Hello.
And Sheridan. I thought I got you earlier, but and Steve and Piper and Jen and Chris and Cameron and Polly
Mhm.
and Mike.
Hey, John.
Everybody, hi everybody.
Sorry.
All right, it is 3:00 on Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. And I'm going to call to order Town of Alta work session. This meeting will be an electronic meeting without an anchor location pursuant to my November 12th, 2021 determination. Okay. We have 3 items on the agenda for this work session: the 2021 audit, a budget amendment discussion, and a parking plan update. All right, so the 2021 audit, I am, Piper, would you like to introduce our auditor and say anything you want to about the process?
Yes, I'll introduce Steve Rowley from Keddington and Christensen. And then I think I've met, but that must be Mr. Christensen. Is that right?
No, I'm actually Ron Stewart. I lost the link, and so Steve is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know why you were labeled as that. Sorry. Our auditor, Ron Stewart, where it says Steve Rowley, Keddington and Christensen. I think that the auditor will speak now and present the audit, and then Steve will come back later in the meeting and answer any questions for him that you might have. Take it away, Ron.
Thanks,
Okay.
Piper.
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks for letting me be part of our firm, be part of your city, and perform the audit this year. What I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes and explain to you really what our focus is and our purpose is, the conclusions that we came to, and then how we came to those conclusions. So really there's 3 areas that we look at when we look at an audit. One is to make sure that the financial statements that are presented are materially correct and that you can rely upon those. The second is to determine that the internal controls are designed, implemented, and working effectively. And then the third is that we're in compliance with state law. So that's kind of our job. That's what we're challenged to do. How we come to those conclusions, as far as the financial statements, we take a look at the trial balance of the city, and then we perform a number of tests and functions on those balances to ensure that those are materially correct. So some of those tests, the most secure or easy way to do that is to send confirmations. So we'll send confirmations to third parties to verify that their balance shows the same as what our balance shows. We would do that for cash, accounts receivable, long-term debt. If you had debt, that would be part of it. Major revenues, pensions, those kind of things. We would send confirmations out to verify those balances. In addition, we do a lot of review of invoices. So we'll pull a sample of invoices at the beginning of the year and look at those, make sure that the check matches the invoice matches what's in the general ledger, and then it flows to the financial statements. And while we're looking at that, we're also looking at the controls to make sure that there's proper approvals and that the city is safeguarding their assets. We'll also, as we look at invoices for capital assets, we'll also pull a number of invoices after the end of the year and review those to make sure that the service was in the proper period. So if whatever happened in June, that we'll make sure it was quartered in that proper period. And then we'll pull invoices for accrued liabilities and some of the other things that affect the city. We also recalculate balances. So there's certain calculations on the financial statements, depreciation, wages payable, some of your pension allocations that are calculations that are made, and we'll go and recalculate those, take those balances and calculate those to make sure that they're reasonable. And then we do analytical reviews. So at the beginning of the audit, we will look at this year and the last year, compare to see if there's any differences and anomalies. As we find those, that's where we kind of design our test to make sure that we can address those issues and find out what those differences are and why. As we're doing tests of the individual balances, we'll also kind of look this year to last year. For example, if we're looking at cash, we would say, okay, what was the difference in the cash from this year to last year? If there was a big difference, what happened? Why? And make sure we can answer those differences. And then at the end of the audit, we do it again, kind of on a high level as we're looking at the financial statements to just look and see, does it make sense? Is there anything big hanging out there that we haven't addressed and that we don't have an answer to why those differences are? And if that's the case, then we go back and start asking questions and make sure that we can address those and make sure we've reached out to all those. Through that kind of gives us an idea and a comfort level that the financial statements are materially correct. So our opinion is, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund and the aggregate remaining fund information of the town of Alta as of June 30th, 2021. And the respective changes in financial position and cash flows were applicable thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That's a big long paragraph that basically says that it's an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion, or the best opinion that you can receive. So broken down, what that means is if you look at those financial statements, you can be comfortable that that's really what happened within the city. You can rely on those. The second thing that we do is we want to make sure that we're understanding and can not necessarily give an opinion, but evaluate the internal controls of the city. We want to make sure that, like I said before, that they're designed, that they're implemented and working. So we do that through interviews, walkthroughs, observations. As we're doing our testing, we're looking at those controls to see, are those controls really working? While we don't give an opinion on internal controls, we would, if something came to our attention where the controls just weren't working, or there was a section of the city that didn't have controls, and that would be something that would bring to your attention and let you know. If a big section wasn't working or wasn't designed, that would be considered a material weakness. If it was designed, but maybe it wasn't being very effective, some of those could be considered significant deficiencies. Through our testing and our walkthroughs and the procedures that we took, we didn't find anything that came to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness that we would need to bring to your attention. So bottom line, we feel like your controls are designed and working effectively. The third thing that we do is we look at state compliance. So the state auditor has designated certain areas within the city that they want us to review. Some of those are review on an annual basis, some on a once every 3 or 5 years. So in a 5-year period, all the areas are looked at. In fact, if we look at this year, some of the areas that we looked at, budgetary compliance, fund balance, fraud risk assessment, government fees, restricted taxes, and cash management. So those are the areas that we chose to look at this year. When we pick those areas, the state says, okay, here's the areas you wanted to look at, here's the things that you're supposed to do. And so we take those prescribed procedures and we perform those on the city to ensure that they're in compliance. Our opinion is that you are in compliance with those areas that we looked at. And so there are no issues or findings that we needed to bring up or to address with you at this time as far as state law. So that is a really, really quick review of what we do as auditors, what our job is and the conclusions that we've come to. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk through anything else that anybody has.
I just want to clarify that in some previous years, we have been noted, I guess I'll say, for not having adequate separation of duties, which is a typical problem in some smaller communities. But I don't see that in your report.
Correct.
So I just want to call out Piper in particular for over the years that she has been in this position. We have received good and now essentially perfect auditors reports. And I just really appreciate your hard work. And also the other staff members who have contributed to getting those controls where they need to be. So that's a comment I want to make. Anybody else have a comment?
I would support that and agree. I think that this audit indicates both your leadership, Harris, and the staff has worked together to get us into compliance, which we haven't always been in the past.
Well, thanks, Margaret. Appreciate that. Really, the credit goes to the staff. Especially given the challenges of the last 2 years. It's really great. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of other interest in making a comment, but anybody who would like to is welcome to. Is there anything more that we need to do to receive your report besides having received the written report and now having this short presentation?
Nope, I think Piper has all the information, so she can go ahead and submit that.
Okay,
It's
good.
considered the final report soon.
And I also want to thank you too, Steve. It's been a good relationship over the last few years, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, we love working with Gilbert and Stewart. They do an excellent job. They're very thorough in their audit. So,
well, you've also been helpful in making sure that we understood what we needed to do throughout the year. So appreciate that.
Thank you both. And Ron, you're free to go. Steve will go and come back. He has to go to a different board meeting, but he'll log back in a little while.
I'm not guessing, Steve, that there's going to be a lot of fireworks when you come back, but of course, you never know.
yep, I'm welcome to answer any questions as they come up. So,
Okay,
we'll
thanks.
see you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Piper, great job, really.
Thanks.
You are the woman of the next hour, so to speak, as well, because the next item on our work session agenda, I think that's all we have to do on this first item, right?
We're going to accept it later in the meeting as an action item. Yeah.
That's right. Right. So we can move on to the second item, which is the budget amendment.
Yes.
Which the budget worksheet was included as an appendix to the resolution. So people can find it there if they haven't already located it.
Yes.
And I would propose, Piper, I know that you've, I can see, and we discussed ahead of time, that you would highlight those categories where there were changes. And let me just preface this by saying that we worked on this to understand the best, as best we could, our actual opportunities and needs and financially. And so I asked Piper to look at the actual year-to-date expenditures and to update the expected expenditures for the rest of the year. So this is not the final draft, so to speak. The town council will need to review the 22 budget in the spring as well.
Correct. Since I sent it out to you, I don't know if some people thought that the heading on the third column was a typo where it says 2021-21. I have changed the heading. It still says that on the top line, but then it says fiscal year 2022 budget. And the third line says approved June 2021, so that you understand that's the one that you approved last June.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, 2021-21 isn't quite what.
It has to do with the software and how those budget levels are entered, but I'm trying to find my copy that has those highlighted. And you want me to go?
If you want me to share my screen, I can do that.
Oh, do you want to?
Or do you want to just?
Yes, that'd be
through it? That
great.
would
Thanks,
fine.
Harris.
Okay. Okay, stand by just a second here.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're seeing my other desktop here. And of course, we
I think
start. we
I
start
think
with
I
the revenues.
noted earlier that we didn't do anything to the tax revenue estimates. We'll leave that. I mean, we're still at the beginning. We've only received 14 or 20% of our tax revenue, so we didn't want to touch that yet and estimate how much we might exceed that. But those are conservative estimates, so we didn't touch that.
Yeah, and I'll just point out that they are indeed conservative. And if you looked at that audit statement, we actually, were conservative last year, and we did well. And as it turned out, we were preparing for the worst and hoping for something better.
Right. We did exceed our estimates in licenses and permits, especially in building permits, where when you're putting together a budget for the next year, it's hard to estimate what's going to happen. So back in March of last year, we put a conservative 17,000, but we have already, we put in 9,600 and we've already received 17,000. And John identified a couple of projects that we expect by the end of June we'll have 32,000 in building permits. That particular function also affects down at the bottom of that page, the plan check fees, because those are collected at the time of the building permits as well. The parking permit program was not on our radar when we put this together. This is an estimate put together a couple of months ago, I think. I'm not sure if it's still the exact amount, but it's an estimate of what kind of revenue might come in through the town parking permit program. So you can see on the bottom line there, it's more than doubled the permitting revenue there. In the next grouping, we have, there's a small increase here because we have already received more than our budgeted amount there. Yeah. And that may be because of a carryover from a project that was completed or that we received payment for this fiscal year, but it actually might have been a carryover from last fiscal year. And we go down to counsel, please stop me along the way if you want, or we can go back to these items if you want. I'm going to jump down to fines and forfeitures. We budgeted 23,000. We've already received almost 23,000. So I expect a lot more than 25,000, but I conservatively put $2,000 more that we will receive in fines revenue. When we put the budget together, we didn't know the amount of the American Rescue Plan Act. We did receive at the beginning of the fiscal year about 22,000. So that is in here. We expect another payment, I guess, of the same amount, but not until next fiscal year, I believe, not next calendar year, but next fiscal year.
That's correct, Piper.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. We got more for the trucks than our used trucks than we expected, probably due to Toyota trucks were in great demand this summer. So that increased that bottom line miscellaneous revenue by about 30,000.
It's a good year to sell used cars. Maybe we should have sold them all.
Right. Oh, we're going to scroll down quite a bit to the court.
Yeah, I'm at the, here you go.
Yep, I was just following you. Sorry, 6 to 11. So we've already received, and we pay a certain amount to the state for the victim reparations or surcharges on our fines. We've already paid out $500, which exceeded our estimate. I put another guesstimate on what that would be by June 30th, but I don't think it's off the charts to say that it would be another $1,500 or so.
I'll just point out that we've moved to expenditures.
Yes, thank you. The mayor has proposed a 3% wage increase for the administration office. This was this had to do with the admin team actually John and I put together comparable salaries with other statewide officials, and in light of the other increase to the marshal's office, the mayor graciously put in a 3% increase there. So that's why that's gone up. It's only about a $4,500 impact on the budget for the next 6 months. I'm not sure why in the municipal building, why that insurance benefit was $10,000. It shows zero that we've spent so far. That's not an actual number. This was related to our newest full-time employee, who is a multi-departmental employee. And so we're going to have to do a manual journal entry to even to distribute that expense. So that's why it shows zero, but it's not going to be more than 5,000 is my guess. Let's see, I think we're scrolling to the expense for parking program. Not sure what that will be, except for signage is included, and I estimated about Mike helped me estimate about $5,000 in signage for that. Planning and zoning, John has put on our radar that we could be getting legal expenses for the Patsy Marley activities that are going on. So I increased that by $10,000 to be ready for that in case something happens there.
We have only incurred a little bit of extra money so far on that, but depending on what they decide to do, we could see more activity.
Right. Last month, the council supported a bump in salaries for the marshal's department. That's what you see there. Post office, when the mayor proposed that 3% increase, it was across the board with any non-marshal office employees. So the part-time people you'll see in post office and summer program and the sewer department wage increases. Building inspection, this has to do with, because our building permit revenue went up, we also spend a little bit more in inspections. And so that's just reflecting the actual number we've spent so far. So the American Recovery Act that we estimated coming in at $22,000, there are certain qualifying expenses that you can use those funds for, and we have identified that it would be, well, we have understood that it is infrastructure to utilities or sewer and water. Last year, I had the budget going to sewer. We did have some repairs and some improvements this summer that I think now that it should be going to water. So that's where it shows a transfer to the water fund to, it's a simple in and out revenue and expense. I didn't lower the transfer to capital projects very much, just enough to balance the budget. It's an increase of 100, and I wrote it on my summary. I can't remember, 104,000, maybe 106,000.
This looks like about 110, this difference. From
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's easy.
It's a little less than 110.
Okay. There you have it. There are small increases in sewer and water. Well, not small. I'm sorry. Let's go down to, I believe water is first. Keep going past that. The 22,000 from the American Rescue Act, if you go up just a little, was not in this budget before. Now it is to come in. We had some improvements that under that other service water projects that have already cost us 34,000. We insulated some water pipes down there in 2 different locations in the GMD lot that were, the lines were freezing in the winter. So they were dug up and insulated. We're hoping that'll solve the problem. And I actually need to talk to Steve on where that repair or those improvements should go to, because we, under capital I know we also had a $15,000 repair on a leaky water pipe. And I'm not sure if these go under projects or infrastructure replacement or capital improvements. I need to get a clarification on that. However, the increase to this budget is about 22,000, which is explained by the American Recovery revenue coming in. And then here on the sewer, before we knew about the 22,000, there was talk about the American Recovery Act, and an estimate was thrown out there of 70,000. So we thought we were getting that. I have now put that down to 0 in this budget amendment. The how we were going to spend that last year was replacing a saggy pipe. Apparently that is not a bigger problem as it was originally thought. So that's down to 0 there. And that reduces the total bottom line on the sewer budget by about 60,000.
Great, Piper. Thank you. Good, strong work on being prepared for this conversation and for making a very clear and understandable, I think, presentation. Thank you. Comments, questions?
I had a question related to bonuses. You talked about the salaries going up 3% for the staff. That was not the marshal's office. But I see some bonuses went up as well, except for bonuses for administration and municipal building employees. Can you talk about that?
I didn't think any of those went up from the June.
Right. I'm surprised to hear that, Margaret. So let's see if we have a misunderstanding or some other. this has not gone up 9,000, 9,000. It went up from last year. But
Yes.
that was already approved in June.
Right, that was my point, was the bonuses did not go up in the administrative or municipal building, but did in other categories.
Which line do you see them going up for? Because that's, I think I'm confused.
Yeah, I didn't think I had touched the
Yeah, I didn't think so.
bonus amounts.
So as
I'm
I-
not quite understanding your where you're pointing to. I'm sorry.
Page 5, the post office performance bonus goes from, oh, sorry, you're right. It was 500 previous year, but it was approved as 750. So it did not change. I was looking at the wrong column. And maybe that's the case in the other.
I suspect so. Yeah, my guess is you're looking at columns 2 and 3 rather than 3 and
3 and
6.
Yeah.
6, yeah. Yeah, we didn't touch the bonus line for the amendment.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. Any other concerns or comments?
I mean, I hate to mention this, but the question about the revenue from interstate of 33K, how reliable is that number based upon our current understanding of the situation?
Probably, I don't know how to answer that, Margaret. That's very up in the air. It won't be 0 is my guess. The
Okay.
only way it goes to 0 is if we have no parking permit program at all. And while there are, we can talk about this in just a minute. That seems unlikely. Let me put it that way. My guess is that we won't have this much revenue from there, but I haven't done. Let's put it this way. If we had 100, let's say we have about 100 permits, most of which would be overnight, but not all, times $250, that's 25,000. So that strikes me as the likely lower end.
Okay. All right.
But I really don't know. And I think that what will happen, even if we had a permit plan, it would only be a projection. And so that number will have to be talked about in the spring. And by then we will have seen what kind of sales tax revenue we have. One of the options in this budget would have been to be less conservative with the sales tax revenue, which was an idea from June anyway. But rather than do that and lower this number, given that it's only been in the last couple of days that this number seems as uncertain as it does today, I didn't ask Piper to readjust this, considering that this had been sent out already.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing was, and it may again be my inability to understand this well, but the plan check fees and the surcharge, I understood from John's staff report that it was 37.5. And yet if I total the surcharge fee and the building permit fee, I come to 40. So I probably just don't understand how these numbers interact.
Also in 2 different line items, there's an impact fee and a re-veg bond. 2,000 each is the estimate I got from John for those. It might be up
Which
higher.
line? Oh, higher on
in the revenue side.
Yeah. Sorry. Here's the re-veg.
In the 1034 category, the top and the bottom lines there.
So here's 2,000 and here's another 2,000 difference.
That's what we've already received. And I believe that John is thinking we might get another one of both of those in the spring.
And I think, Margaret, maybe, and those don't apply to the building surcharge. So the building surcharge, the 85% of 1% of the building permit fee that we have to give to the state to run their building program is the building permit, plan check, electrical, and plumbing. So it doesn't include impact or veg.
Okay, so I was trying to add numbers up to make them equal and
They won't add up.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Because I get
Sorry,
it.
Margaret, we didn't give you the right set of inputs into your addition problem. All right, good.
May I ask briefly, and thank you so much for such a comprehensive presentation, Piper and Mayor Sondak. Could I ask why the comparables for administrative wages weren't shared with the entire council?
I don't know. I shared them with the mayor. I thought that we weren't looking to make as big a different impact on the budget. I mean, the AMO was a pretty big one, and to do another big increase would impact the budget, and then you might have to touch the general fund revenue. I'm sorry, the tax revenue estimates in order to make things balanced. So those can be shared. That is public information on the transparency website. I can share that.
The information I had wasn't as John gave me one table and Piper gave me another, and they weren't quite as easily understood as the police data, for one thing, which is part of why it didn't even occur to me to get the council involved on this question. Our staff are paid relatively low. You have to include the benefits question with this comparison, but they are low. There's no question about that. But we are a resort town, and it didn't seem to me that looking for a big increase at this time of the year before we see what our sales tax revenue is would be a wise move. The Alta Marshal's office was kind of, my hand was forced to use that kind of metaphor because of the departures from the staff. I would very much encourage the town council, when they're thinking about the next year's budget, to take a close, hard look at that. All the staff got a 5% raise in June because in part they had given up a raise a year ago as a result of COVID. And the 5% at that time, we did not have the inflation emerge that we've seen this fall. So the 5% seemed like a pretty reasonable increase. Usually we don't give mid-year increases, especially given the resort town revenue pattern. So that's why it hasn't been bigger. I thought 3% mid-year, it's a pretty unusual, and nobody would have expected even that. So that was my thinking in general.
Yes, nothing about my question is meant to imply that it's not a well-deserved increase.
I didn't hear it that way at all. At least I didn't. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the third item. We are almost exactly on time, which is great. So parking plan update. I can see that Chris Cawley is, I don't know, have you had any sleep since Thursday?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I slept a little bit last night.
Okay, good.
Hope you did too.
I slept a little bit. I was awake at 4:20. I mean, the thing is that this issue is complicated and represents a change in the way things work in Alta that the likes of which we have not really seen, it seems to me. But Chris, how do you want to say something first, or do you want me to try and sum it where we are?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, to be totally frank with the town council, this issue has been so much in flux that when this agenda was put together last week and sent to you, we thought we were someplace. We thought we were someplace that we would be able to present clearly. And I would have called on Chris and he would have had a very nice explanation for just where we were. That isn't the situation today. So honestly, I don't have a presentation on this. I can talk through what I know. And Chris can talk through what he knows, and or we can about how we got to where we are, or we can talk about where we are and what we think we need to do. Maybe that's the easiest thing to do. As of right now, I'll just start with that. We do not have an agreement. The agreement we thought we had with the Alta ski lifts is not going to be executed. And so we are not at the moment contemplating that agreement. We're not sure if there could be another agreement. The negotiations, to put it in these terms, have been, we've taken a break from them, let's put it that way. So we have, as I understand it, 90 overnight parking spots that we could control, most of which would need a special use permit from the Forest Service, and potentially, although this is still a little unclear to me anyway, an agreement with UDOT. UDOT told this on early last week in a conversation I had with the director of UDOT, and on Thursday with some of the other staff members, in no uncertain terms, that we would have to have an agreement with them. However, in yesterday's meeting, we were told that that is actually not the case. So, and that the only agency that controls what we do is the United States Forest Service, if and only if we have a permit system. Actually, I think that if we have a permit system for pay, we definitely need a special use permit. We don't have a special use permit today. We don't have a special use permit today because as of until Friday afternoon, we thought we had to first have an agreement with UDOT, and we had been working on that. And then we were told Friday afternoon in a conversation with the ski area that that wasn't in fact the case, but we didn't know what to do with that information on Friday afternoon because we hadn't spoken to the Forest Service about verifying whether that really was the situation. And, you know, something like that, you need to talk to the principal, not hear it from a second party. So, which we did. We had a meeting on yesterday morning. So that's a bit up in the air. Since we don't have a special use permit, we cannot implement a permit system until we do. That seems pretty clear. And so this week we are certainly where we have been, which is it's a first come, first serve process, working on the areas that the Alta ski area does not control. And I'll have Chris review where exactly those are. Or I'll ask you, Chris, to do that. So let's see. Where do we stand is we need to decide whether we are going to have a permit system of any kind. And if we are, we need to have an operational plan that then gets submitted to the Forest Service as part of an application to a special use permit.
Thank you so much for all of your hard work, Mara and Chris and the entire town. In broad strokes, can you help me understand legally why a municipality does not have precedence over a concessionaire when it comes to a relationship with the Forest Service regarding any conflict.
Well, I'm going to foreshadow what I expect Polly to say, but Polly's our legal advisor. So, but I want to throw my 2 cents in here. I think it's because the concessionaire, the permittee, is a permittee vis-a-vis the United States government, and the United States takes precedence over a municipality among other bodies.
And I don't understand that point. Forgive me. Maybe Polly can clarify that.
It's a constitutional issue, I think.
Generally, the federal government overrules states and localities. So just like when something happens in the Supreme Court, right, of the United States or federal law, that supersedes any local ordinance. So
let me give you an example, Sheridan. Imagine it's 1969 and there's a draft, but the town of Alta passes an ordinance that says none of our citizens must serve involuntarily in the military. I don't think the draft board of the United States wouldn't care what we said about that.
Thank you. I understand that point. To me, what's missing in this argument is the idea that a concessionaire's interests would supersede a municipality's.
Indeed, that is a point of frustration.
And as a follow-up, what I mean is from the legal precedent of this sort of debate, which seems quite clear that a municipality working with a federal authority would have greater standing than a concessionaire.
We're not working with a federal authority in the sense that I think you mean. They have taken the position, presumably rightly, that a special use permit for a ski area is been granted and grants what amounts to a certain kind of property right in the parking areas. Shall I it's a higher authority than ours, Sheridan. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's just, those are the facts.
Mayor, I'm not sure if you saw, but it looks like Mike Morey might want to make a comment.
I didn't see. Mike.
I was just going to try and further clarify, and if our legal team could correct this if it's not accurate, but presently the United States government has conveyed an authority to the Alta ski area that they have not conveyed to the town.
Through its United States Forest Service agency?
Yes, and their special use permit process.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, do you want to say where our 90 plus 30 spots are?
Sure, that would be a great topic. Let's see, I will share my screen so that we can try to be unequivocal about this. So I guess first I'll show this handy little graphic. Does this appear on everyone's screen right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it.
Okay. So this is a kind of a Google My Maps, I think, or Google Earth inventory that the ski area created back in May or June that we've kind of been using throughout the last 6 months to inventory and refer to Northside parking areas. So you can see, you know, the white polygons indicate our kind of historic overnight areas. A couple of those red polygons are day use only areas. The one by the post office there is obviously where the UDOT snowcat and a no parking anytime zone are. And then the orange zone over there is either signed no parking, Alta Marshal's office official zone, or there is a small amount of overnight parking in that area that I think we're counting on as 6% of our total overnight parking supply at this point. So, so that's kind of the lay of the land. These are the quantities. You know, the overnight areas here. So you know, just for your information, the Ski special use permit, you know, kind of traces along the private property underneath the hotels. The Alta Lodge owns a big chunk of the parking area up on the south side of the highway right here, what we call the South Flagstaff area. And then the special use permit does include, you know, the rest of what we might call the Rustler mine dump parking. And it follows underneath the Rustler and the Snow Pine, and then it crosses the highway just east of the Snow Pine property line, and then it takes in all of this asphalt up here in the Grizzly Gulch parking area, as we call it, you know, including much of the asphalt in front of the water building. So, you know, this B20 and C41 and A33, these were the parking areas that we were, you know, working towards managing under an MOU with the ski area, but which are not on the table for direct town management at this point. So everything east of this line is kind of our planning space. There's also, I'll show another map in a second, but, you know, on the south side of the highway, what we've been calling the Wildcat Shoulder or the Highway Shoulder parking area, you know, kind of west of the DPH along the edge of the road, there is something like 30 spaces worth of parking in ideal conditions that is available as public parking, and that has been. You know, it's not super reliable parking. It's signed no parking when there's ongoing snow removal. So it's been a little bit hard throughout the process to come to terms about how we're going to kind of inventory that as a parking resource. And certainly now the pressure's on that a little bit more. So, you know, we did kind of release some information about the status of the parking situation today. There is a post on the front page of townofalta.com basically describing the status quo of the parking situation. It has a link to this Google My Maps product, which I busted out this morning. And this shows maybe a little bit more clearly, or in a more, you can zoom in and mouse around and see the place names here. So hopefully this is a good resource for people to really get serious and understand what the you know, town managed parking areas are at this point. So this is that, you know, sometimes we call it the Snow Pine overnight area. It's east of the post office on the north side of the highway. This is the North Flagstaff parking area, as we've come to call it. This is you know, a very limited amount of historic overnight public parking here in front of the Shallow Chef restaurant. This is some day use only parking that, you know, in the past has kind of only been occupied, has been more commonly occupied on peak days, or it's, you know, popular with backcountry skiers or other visitors to Alta. But much of this is on land the town owns. So that's one thing. And then over here, this is kind of that highway shoulder area that, again, as I described, is a little bit of an inconsistent resource. So, Mayor, do you want to jump in at this point and say anything?
Yeah, I'll just point out that, so Chris, follow along with me. The Snow Pine overnight lot is on Forest Service ground and has a UDOT easement where we would park. Correct?
Correct, yeah.
The North Flagstaff orange area up to about where that third or fourth car is from the west, right about there.
Yeah.
So east of where Chris's cursor is on town of Alta owned ground. No Forest Service jurisdiction there. But to the west of that is on Forest Service ground, although not on the special use permit. So it's Forest Service, like the overnight area at Snow Pine. The green day parking there and there I'm guessing, I know that the one, the Wildcat Shoulder, Chris, is UDOT easement. How about the one where you are now? I think that is too.
That is, some of that is, I mean, the town of Alta property abuts
Yeah,
the UDOT easement in this area. So, you know, the way this polygon is drawn, I don't know exactly whether
yeah.
some of that overlaps the easement, which is, you know, also forest, national forest system lands.
Right.
But yeah.
So, you know, the only area that we don't need that we could permit without any other agency's cooperation is our own ground on the north side of Flagstaff. How many spots are there in there, Chris or Mike?
Overnight, probably about 40. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's safe to say this. I think our property probably starts the western corner, southwestern corner is right
Yeah.
about here where this little trail is, and it takes in most of the pavement. I think it takes in the dumpster.
Right. Although that's
almost.
kind
So,
of as you go past the toilets, you get to more avalanche exposure. I mean, one of the things, of course, in Alta is that nowhere is immune from avalanches. It's just a question of how exposed. But if we wanted to issue permits for the ground at the Snow Pine lot and for those 2-day uses, we would need a special use permit from the Forest Service. And on those areas it's unclear. Apparently, it's not likely at this point, but we were told last week that we would need an agreement with UDOT, but yesterday we were told that isn't necessary. So I'm a little unclear about that. We were told by UDOT that we could use that south side of the road at the Wildcat Shoulder. There's probably room for 20, 25 cars. So long as our parking does not impede the use of the highway. But since snow gets pushed off there, exactly what impede the use of the highway means is a little unclear. I will point out that the Alta Lodge is the only one of the lodges here up at the road. And the Gold Miner's Daughter has a little bit of its own parking, I think, but not a ton. But the Alta Lodge has an area of parking where I've heard a couple of different numbers, but it's roughly about 20 cars or 22 cars, I think, that could fit there. And that has not traditionally been used overnight. And there has been an agreement between the town and the Alta Lodge and UDOT about the maintenance and use of that, which I am expecting the Alta Lodge to suspend and use exclusively in the event that there's no additional somewhat more complicated arrangements that involve the Alta Lodge. So that's where we stand. It's 2 minutes to 4. There's your update. I won't spell it out, but you probably all know the World War II expression snafu. Shall we take a 2-minute break and reconvene at 4 o'clock to begin? Okay. Let's adjourn the work session and I'll see you all in a couple of minutes. Thank you. All right. Um,
Oh, is the front door supposed to be unlocked?
Okay, everybody. I see Margaret and Elise and Cliff, and now I see Sheridan. Very good. All right, let's call this meeting of the Alta Town Council of Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 to order. All right, the first item on our agenda, well, I guess I should refer to the my determination of November 12th, 2021, which I've already referred to in the work session about not having an anchor location and just an electronic meeting. Okay. Citizen input is the first item on the agenda. I know, Piper, that we've received some document, some letters that are part of the record, and we also, I would presume, have some people wanting to speak. At least I was told we would have. Or Jen, rather. I beg your pardon.
I was gonna let Piper go first and then I'll go.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was right. Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I maybe should go backwards. The most recent note I got, and I don't know if these should be part of the record. They did come in after our deadline for making it into, but they will be in the public comment folder. Anyway, I have a letter from Anna Roebling. Mayor Sondak, my name is Anna Roebling. This will be my third winter at the Alta Lodge. I live here year round and am an Alta resident and voter. I appreciate how much you understand your constituents' needs and how unreasonable Alta Skelos behavior is. Having a car up here enables me to work 40 hours a week at the lodge, teach yoga for ACE, and volunteer at the Alta Clinic while studying for the MCAT and going to school. I'm writing to express my appreciation for all the hard work you're putting in to protect Alta residents and community members from corporate overreach. Alta ski lift, and Forest Service will certainly be hearing from little old me. I got that about an hour, less than an hour before the meeting started. I also sent to the town council, and those 2 letters are in one PDF. I don't think I could read those because I think they're part of the public record. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Piper.
Okay. And then we did get the very nice letter from Galen Benyon as well that was shared with the entire council. Just pointing
Yes, and I see that Representative Benyon is an attendee at this meeting.
Oh, there she is.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated her service to our community and the nice words that she said about me. So thank you, Galen.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of explain, since we have more folks than normal, which is great in the public comment period here, how this is going to work. You have 2 minutes for your public comment. Because we have so many, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to do a hard cutoff. So try and pay attention to that 2 minutes yourself, because there's no option for me to have a countdown clock via Zoom. It is also helpful, since you only have 2 minutes, if you can try and listen to the folks that go before you and state something new. That means that we're having more dialogue and you're sharing more information with the council, as opposed to, repeating something somebody already said. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the people that have contacted me to make public comment. We're going to end up going in this order. And then if anybody that's on the call that it doesn't hear their name would like to speak, please raise your hand. At the bottom of the Zoom, you'll see a raise hand option. I'll probably unraise your hand when I know I've put you on a paper list here to manage. So don't take offense when that happens. That just means you've been added to the list, okay? So first up, we have, and this might just take me a minute to navigate everybody. I wish they did it alphabetically, but they don't in our attendee portal. Mitch, okay, actually I was going to give the whole list. Okay, so in order, we're going to go Mitch McDermott, Blake Balkman, Francisco Perry, Christian Hedstrom, Gage Kazikas, Mitch Frankel, Garrett Culligan, and Brad Rutledge. That is who's spoken to me. If you didn't hear your name and want to speak, please raise your hand. So first, I'm going to go to Mitch. All right, Mitch, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right, I'll start my timer here. I saw the statement put out by Mayor Harris, and that addresses a lot of what I had to say originally. One of the biggest points was losing access to Upper Little Cottonwood Canyon and Grizzly Gulch, but Grizzly Gulch is known for being one of the safest spots on high Abbey danger days and a great spot for learning for backcountry skiers. Many Abbey 1 courses, know before you go, rescue courses, whatever it is, it's a playground for learning and staying safe for backcountry. I also want to comment, beyond this issues, I'm concerned about the money being funneled into ASL's pockets. You guys touched on this as well, so I won't go too in depth, but if I'm paying for parking, it should be contributed to something worthwhile, like upkeep on the road or funding towards more public transportation. Something else like more buses or smaller shuttles for like dawn patrols. And that's something I'd really love to see. Another thing you guys touched on was the 8 a.m. restriction. So I won't go too depth into that, but you guys know what a burden it is on people skiing or working 9 to 5, trying to ski before work and not being able to park till 8 a.m. So I kind of revised what else I had to say, but regarding the statement, I'm 100% against the town of Alta obtaining 50-some spots from ASL if it means coming to an agreement with them about permitting the spot 7 days a week. Even if the agreement is to permit the spots a couple days a week, I'm still 100% against it. I and the rest of the backcountry community understand needing spots for employees, residents, etc. And I emphasize that's not what we're upset about. We'd love to work with you guys. This brings me to my next point. I think at this point, it's clear ASL has no intentions or desire to cooperate with anyone not willing to follow the parking plan. I would like to see Mayor Harris and top representatives for the town of Alta join forces with those opposed to ASL's permitted parking plan to jointly contact and put pressure on the U.S. Forest Service to amend the special use permit with ASL. I've contacted them myself and so have several others, but words from someone like the mayor of Alta hold more weight than the words of a 26-year-old split border. I think this could be the best approach going forward, but I'm always open to other ideas. I don't know.
Thanks, Mitch. Sorry. Next, we're gonna go to Blake.
Thanks, Mitch.
Sorry, this is hard to do, you guys. I apologize, but Blake, I don't see Blake on there. I'm gonna keep looking and I'm gonna go to some next in line. Actually, I don't see that person on here either. I do, however, see Gage. Gage, you are unable to speak now?
Yep, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make it quick, and it might not like ring on too many people's things, but like true community is about being connected and responsible for what happens, not just watching, but actively pursuing and participating and making a difference through actions. I read what the mayor wrote, and like Alta started off first come, first serve, and I believe that's how it should still be. And yeah, that's all I got. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Gage. Okay, next we're gonna go Mitch Frankel. I saw you here. There you are. Mitch, we should be able to hear you.
Jen, I'm not hearing him.
I'm not either.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Mitch, we're having audio issues there. Okay, next we're gonna go to Garrett Culligan. There you are. Garrett, we should be able to hear you.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so just want to keep this short, essentially to echo the points made by Mitch and by Gage. I believe it should be first come, first serve for these limited spots. I get that, out ski lifts, they have their own priorities, and that they are the main economic driver in the canyon. But I think for this small group of us that are backcountry users and want to have access to our public lands, especially those of us that majority do it as dawn patrollers early in the morning, having those limited spots is a necessary resource to give us some opportunity to be a part of the community at Alta without paying, $1,500 for a lift ticket or lift season pass. I think for us, many times we're gone long before the lifts open. I know for myself, it is anecdotal, but I spent more days in Grizzly Gulch than anywhere else because it is the safest spot during those dangerous months that are about to come up, probably starting tonight after the storm. And without access to those areas, it creates a lot of danger trying to find new spaces and crowding all of us into those spaces. So yeah, I believe having those limited spots become first come, first serve early in the morning is something I personally would like to see. And if there's a way we can work on a compromise there with that 8 a.m. time frame, that's something I'd love to work towards.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you. I am going to go back to Mitch Frankel, who has fixed his mic. Mitch, sorry, let me just find you again. There we go. Okay, Mitch, I think you have the floor.
My apologies for that. My comments go along with Garrett's and Mitch's earlier. I appreciate the mayor's statements. It does alleviate a lot of the concerns many of us had. I want to add one piece to this conversation, and that's the comment that you'll hear from many, which is, why don't we all just ride the bus? And I would say at the moment, this is not a really viable option for a lot of people because it does not run early or reliably often. It can often be full before you even try to get on it on the weekends. Backcountry skiing often involves making gear and clothing choices on site, and it's not easy to bring on a bus or store up there. And most importantly, we have a pandemic that is still ongoing and cramming even more people wall to wall on a bus is a daunting consideration right now. I would just hope that maybe we can keep some public access parking open, and many of us feel that way. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. And next we have Brad Rutledge. I'm sorry if I'm botching people's names. I apologize. Okay, Brad, you should be good to go.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can. Thank you.
All right, let's see. I'll just skip turning on the camera. Thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Brad Rutledge, and I'm with Wasatch Backcountry Alliance. We've been very involved in this process, working with the town of Alta, with Mike Mon, others for years, literally, on trying to accommodate, deal with some of these issues. So a couple of really important things I want to say, and I know I don't want to be redundant. I want to be aware of my time allotment. If you could give me a 10-second warning too, that would be really useful. As lots of people have said, Grizzly Gulch is very important. WBA, we have a trailhead counting program, and this is the most popular trailhead in the central Wasatch for backcountry access, and that includes backcountry skiing, snowboard, split boarding, snowshoeing, just people going up on hikes, up on the summer road, et cetera. So very, very important winter recreational area, and for public lands, it's vital for the central Wasatch. And so we have to really look at issues that are impacting access to public lands. And so one of the big points that I know that Chris Adams, our president, has said a few times, and others, is that we really need to make some parking spots reserved as non-fee based. So we need to have some free spots reserved for people who are accessing the public lands, that they don't have to pay a fee. We also disagree with the time allotment. We're really, really concerned with not only confusion and crowding that this will cause by not opening up the lots before 8 a.m. The dawn patrol obviously are people who get up early, go up and get their skiing in, and then they go and work, or they do other things that they have to do that day. This is super vital. And as I mentioned, this is such an important, accessing these public lands through Grizzly Gulch is really vital for these people. And so it's really, really important to think through that, we've had a precedent established great for many years, that people can access these public lands through parking. And it's going to be a real mess if we don't deal with this in the right way.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
The last two folks that I have that are on here are going to be Pat Shea and then John Fay. If I have missed anybody that's in the lineup, again, raise your hand. Pat, let's go to you. Again, just reminder of 2 minutes. I think you should be with us, Pat.
I have my own stopwatch.
Okay.
Many people have considered me to be rude in the way I make public comments. But having been raised as a Gentile in this otherwise sweet community, I've found that that's the most effective way. What's happening here is Mike Mon is grooming ASL to be a part of Snowbird, and obviously parking without having to build a parking structure is going to be very important. I also think that if we were able to litigate the question, we would find that there was undue influence over the Forest Service at one level, or more likely in Washington, D.C., since they and Snowbird have Washington lobbyists. I was one of 3 people that founded Friends of Alta 41 years ago. Our purpose was to preserve the watershed and protect the history of Alta. What you have now with Mike Mon and the ASL is simply a machine meant to make money and bring it up for better sale. The same thing is happening with Patsy Marley. And it does seem to me, and I do want to correct one part of your lawyer's comment, having taught constitutional law and having been head of a federal agency, that is incorrect. A special use permit holder, like a grazing permit holder, has to be in abeyance with local governments, both towns, municipalities, counties, and state government. They do not automatically fall under the shadow of the federal government, which I agree in the end is the final arbitrator of what goes on. The other thing I would mention is I think there needs to be an effort to get UDOT, ASL, the town of Alta, and the Alta
10
Lodge
seconds, Pat.
in front of a mediator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. I will mention that the question of local ordinance and its effect has been at least brought to the table with Forest Service. And I have to say, I haven't got a clear, I'm not clear on what their position really is about that. Go ahead, Jim.
John Fay. You should.
Hello?
There we go. Yep, we can hear you. You got
Hey,
2
great.
minutes.
I want to take a minute and thank Mayor Sondak, the whole town of Alta, Jen, Chris, Piper, anyone who's been working really hard with our best intention, being residents of Alta and people who ski here, Dawn Patrol or whatever. I would just like to chime in and say I'm actually a year-round resident, and with my license is here, I live here, maybe by choice, maybe not. It's also my job, but I'm short parking as well. Seems like everyone is, but just saying that, and I know everyone is kind of getting on the same page, so. Just want to thank the town, thank the mayor, maybe Mike Mon's listening. Thank you to him too, because I'm sure it's a tough thing to be in, to feel like you don't have enough parking for your skiers. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, John. And Mayor, I don't see anybody else that's requested to speak, so we can move on.
Okay. Well, thanks for all those comments. They do become part of our public record, and we will be able to convey those comments forward. All right, the next item on our agenda is a discussion of possible action on the Alta Chamber Visitors Bureau agreement. I think we have this on the agenda at this point. Oh, there is somebody with a hand up.
Yep, I just saw that come in. Do you want to allow that real quick?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the ACVB, which I'm guessing is next on the agenda because of some timing constraints for Ambrosia O'Grady. Okay.
Tyler Meadows, we've enabled you to speak.
All righty, thank you. My
You have
apologies
2
for
minutes as a
coming in so
reminder.
late.
I don't know if you heard the 2 minutes, just
Yes.
a reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this should be short. Again, just want to say thank you to Mayor Harris, to the town of Alta, to staff and town council for your hard work. This has been difficult for a lot of us, a lot of different use groups, not only concerned as a backcountry skier like other people, but also for other user groups. I think there are, as was pointed out by the Wasatch Backcountry Alliance, there are a lot of other user groups that are being affected by this change. And I think the issue at hand is it's not just for the Dawn Patrollers that want to be up there, selfishly, but this is an issue of equity for public lands. And I think that's why it's worth the fight and it's worth speaking up about. And I agree and want to second what Mitch said, that if we can join forces and try to work with the Forest Service in making adjustments to the special use permit so that the access to public lands can remain into the future, that is so important to so many different users, so many different groups, so that the access to natural places doesn't become cost prohibitive, which is unfair and not equitable in so many different ways. Just expressing that and giving my support for all the efforts that you've made so far, and just continuing the discussion that we can push with the Forest Service and with the government to see if we can enact change for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Okay, let's move to the next item, which is the ACVB agreement. And I am not seeing
So I should have updated you, Mayor, and Piper, and the rest of us that Rosie became unable to join us today. So I am sorry about that. We might have maybe shuffled the schedule around, but I am prepared to take up some space in the meantime, if that is okay. And I'd also be happy to go at another point in the meeting.
Well, I know that we were expecting, are the folks from Pathway still
They
here?
are. They are.
What? So Chris, if it's agreeable to the town council, can we switch these two items since we have the outside guests here now, and Chris is here anyway, and will be here after they leave?
Fine with me.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you. And
Okay.
Chris. So
All right.
I'm
Thanks,
moving.
Chris.
No problem.
Let's see here.
Hello, Amber Lee.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Do you
Hi,
want me
Dave.
to do a brief introduction, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, so last year, the town, mainly under working at your instruction, Mayor, but working with mainly Chris and John, engaged with Indian architects to do a feasibility study on a piece of property that the town owns for a community center. And so they produced a product for us. It's a concept of a community center. And we identified that the next step for the town, if we were going to move forward with some sort of community center, whether it be in that location, another location, whether it be that building or another building, since we have this concept, that we should go out to the community and start to try and understand if we would be able to raise the funds and what funds we could be able to raise for a community center. And so that is really, I think, the essence of what Dave Jones and Amber Lee of Pathway Associates have done for us. And I'm sure they will articulate it much better than I did. But I'd like to pass the floor over to them and say that they've been an absolute pleasure to work with. And there you have it.
Well, thank you, Jen. And I'm assuming that we have access to the slides and so forth. But yeah, there we go. So let me just begin by saying thank you. We've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with the town of Alta. We've worked primarily with Mayor Harris and Jen Clancy and John, the city administrator. And it has been very useful to get their information and helpful to get their guidance. And we feel great about the work that we've been able to do and the people we've been able to talk to. So Pathway Associates is a consulting firm. We primarily work with nonprofit organizations, but also with a lot of governments. We get involved when organizations need to test their ability to raise private philanthropic funds for a public purpose project. In terms of cities, we've worked with the city of Ogden, we've worked with the city of Salt Lake, and we've worked with West Valley City and a variety of others, including Salt Lake County. We've done over 50 capital campaigns, most of which have been located in the state of Utah. And so we've got a good background and a good understanding of what it takes to succeed with raising a lot of money for an important project. So we're going to share with you today the results of our study. And if you can, I'm not sure who's controlling the slide, but if you can advance one, that'd be great.
Me, Dave. It's me.
Okay. All right, Amberly. So Amberly and I have worked together on this, and the very purpose of the study to begin with is to realistically assess the town of Alta's ability to raise approximately $20 million in capital funds from private donors. Also to assess donor interest in the town of Alta's plans and make recommendations concerning a capital campaign, marketing, and messaging, if in fact that looks like it's going to happen. And finally, to develop a goal, strategy, and general implementation plan for a campaign, should a campaign prove feasible and advisable. So that's what we've done. If you can advance, Amberly, that'd be great. Our methodology was, first of all, to create a case for support document. It's a short document, 3-4 pages, I can't remember exactly, but it makes a very concise argument for why the town of Alta needs a town center, what the plan that has, the concept at least, that has been developed thus far would look like and what it would cost, and to ask the confidential advice of a variety of people as to what they think about that plan. To generate the information for our study, we conducted 34 confidential interviews. Confidential, in our view, means that we don't share who the individuals were that we talked to. Well, we will tell you who they were that we talked to, but we don't show you, we don't affiliate their comments with them. So we take great notes, but end of the day, you'll see what they say, but you don't know who said it. We get a lot better information that way. So we sent the draft. First of all, we talked to 11 internal people. That is, people that are either part of the city of Alta, the town of Alta rather, or long time involved with the development of this project in a position to be knowledgeable. We spoke to the architect, for example, in gathering some initial information. And then we turned around and sent our draft case for support out to a variety of people in the community. I think we sent out about 45 invitations to interview, maybe it was 50. And out of that list, we generated 23 what we call external interviews. These are people who are in the community, who have knowledge about the resources, the philanthropic resources of the community. They may be in a position to make a gift. They may be in a position to influence a gift. We were interested in getting their take on the project and how it may impact their philanthropic decision-making going forward. So that's our methodology. And I'm going to let Amberly take over at this point. She conducted most of the interviews, by the way, and I'm going to let her run forward in talking to you about what our findings were and what our recommendations and conclusions are. And then at the end of our presentation, we'll be happy to take some questions.
Great, thanks, Dave. And this portion of the presentation is really just divided into sort of three specific areas, sort of the internal readiness, sort of factors that we considered and found as we went through that process. Then we'll move to the external readiness and factors and share, some of our findings. And then, we'll move into conclusions and recommendations. So the internal interviews, obviously, as Dave said, they were with staff, people who are close to the project. Really, I think of them as sort of insiders to the town of Alta. So not necessarily potential philanthropic supporters, but people who are, aware of the project and, really understand the town. So our goals in moving through this process was to just familiarize ourselves with the town of Alta, strengths, challenges, aspirations, really understand where the proposed community center project falls in terms of all of the other things that the town, has on their plate, priorities. And then, because a fundraising effort, any fundraising effort is, can be a large undertaking, and certainly a capital fundraising effort is really, look at some key high-level factors that really point to an organization's readiness to embark on a project like this. And then, as part of this, because it was early on in the process, we did use part of some of the information that we gathered to help us craft our case for support, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So sort of the key factors and findings that we found as we moved through our internal readiness, interviews. So the project definition, the project is pretty well defined, and has been certainly talked about amongst the town and the town government and town residents for many years. But there was an acknowledgement from the internal interviewees that there is a significant work to be done. There were concerns about the site, the building design, project costs, operational plan for ongoing operations. So just really that awareness that, we've done a lot of good work. There's still work to be done as we move forward. So another thing, a key factor in organizations who are successful at securing major gifts is if donors, think that the organization, or in this case, government entity, is financially stable. So we inquire about that. There was the feeling that the town is relatively stable, but overly reliant on sales tax. I will say there was sort of lots of conversation about the the unexpected impact on COVID. I think, it may have looked different if we would have asked that question pre-COVID. I think everyone was like, who knew that this, would happen? But, there was sort of this feeling that, relatively stable. There was some concern about sort of funding long-term needs versus in the short term, and some differentiation there. But and then also, another key factor for donors when they consider making major gifts is an organization or government entity good at planning and implementing services, projects, things. Are they able to do what they say they're going to do? And I think by and large, our internal interviewees felt that the town was pretty proficient. There were absolutely challenges acknowledged, but I think that overall people felt pretty good about that. And then the last thing, in order for a project of this scale to be successful, it requires a lot from people internal to the project, particularly staff. And there was widespread support. However, it was not universal. There was not universal support for moving this project forward. So again, from the internal interviews, we gathered information as well from Mayor Sondak and Jen and John. We walked through our case for support process and, really built out the case for support that was part of our inquiry and request to prospective interviewees. So really a case for support is a standard, sort of fundraising tool. And it really outlines the need for the project. Like, why is this important? What do we need to do? Like, what's the need that we need to meet? Then there is the, why this entity is the group to meet the need. So, sort of that's a little bit what came out in the internal interviewees. And then, of course, part of the case for support is the proposal to meet that need. So from as we, crafted our case for support, we came up with those 4 needs statements, which is the current community gathering spaces in the town of Alta are limited and not conducive to community building. There are limited places to gather for well-being, particularly during the winter months. And then the town of Alta itself is not a destination. And I'll just sort of quote verbatim. Indeed, many people come to Alta without even realizing that there is a town to visit. So that was sort of our destination needs statement. And then the last one was a community center would help generate business opportunities that would increase sales tax revenue, thus increasing the viability of the town. So those were the 4 needs statements. That's part of what we do as we test the case for support during our external interview process. I mean, obviously the organization to meet the need, it is the town. That was very easy in this project. There's not a lot of competition for that. It was like the town. And then, of course, the proposal, which is a $20 million capital campaign to build a community center. So as Dave said, this was a 4 to 5 page document that really hit on those key points. The need, the town, sort of the process. We talked a little bit about the process that Mayor Sondak led the town through. And then, of course, the proposal to meet the need in the form of a community center. So as Dave said, we took the case for support. There was an invitation, a request for an interview from the mayor. And then we moved to the external portion of the campaign. Of the effort. We sent the letters via personal email with the case for support attached, and then Pathway. We scheduled the interviews across many time zones and conducted those confidential interviews. So really, rather than just saying like, oh, this is a great conversation about the project, we have some really specific goals as we move through our external interview process. And they're designed to elicit opinions and other information relevant to what we consider to be 5 criteria of a successful capital campaign. So the community perceptions of the sponsoring organization. Do individuals feel that, that this organization, the sponsoring organization, is worthy of support? Is there any sort of bodies buried, anything that we need to know? really the appeal of the project. So we dive into the case and, you know, talk through the needs, the proposed project, and really try to understand how individuals feel about that. The availability of volunteer leadership. So people might like the idea, but are they willing to get involved? You know, would they step forward? You know, in addition, you know, hopefully philanthropic support, but, you know, would they step forward and donate their time? Do they feel passionately enough about the project? And then, you know, the philanthropic environment. What does the landscape look like for this particular project? Is it favorable, unfavorable? And then, of course, that key question, which is, can we raise the money? Like, is there philanthropic support available for this project? So those are the 5 key factors, and I will just walk us through quickly each one of these factors. So, before I do that, just a quick breakdown of the external interviewees. So as you can see, about 64% of respondents identified as individuals. And so that doesn't mean that they don't have business. You know, there are obviously many executives and, you know, many people who have their own businesses and even foundation representatives. But when they responded to our survey and we talked them through, they identified as an individual. And that is actually a really positive thing because, for example, because individual philanthropy is the single largest component of giving in the United States. So about 70% of all charitable giving comes from individual support. So of course that could be through other mechanisms like, you know, a family foundation or a donor advised fund, but it's really something that we like to see. And actually businesses are the smallest by far piece of the philanthropic pie. So, you know, if it had been swapped, for example, that would have been cause for concern. It would have been like, oh, you know, we may not have reached the right people, but we absolutely, you know, feel good about the way our mix shook out. So the first factor that we looked at were the community perceptions of the town of Alta. So 83% of the respondents were very familiar with the town, which is a really good thing because that speaks to their ability to actually provide advice and feedback that's useful. 67% of respondents indicated that they have a favorable impression of the town. And then 43% of the respondents indicated a generally favorable impression of the town of Alta's leadership. And that includes, you know, we didn't break out specifically, but that included the mayor, the town council, and the staff. It was just sort of like, what is sort of the general impression of the leadership. So the really kind of the key finding is that there were no significant adverse perceptions that could significantly detract from the town of Alta's ability to raise capital funds for the proposed project. Of course, it's a small town, there are feelings, there are things people like, things people don't, but there wasn't any like, oh, there was this big scandal or, oh, you know, there's this really terrible thing. I will say parking was mentioned as kind of a hot button issue right now. But, you know, again, it was just sort of like, it felt, you know, very par for the course. There wasn't anything that was like, oh no. And, you know, and that sort of the parking example. However, you know, due to the long personal history that many of our respondents possess, you know, residents possess, and the fact that it is a small town, personal opinions and experiences will most likely play an outsized role in guiding residents' perceptions of any proposal set forth by the town of Alta. So that is a real, I think, important strategic consideration as moving forward, is just understanding that, you know, and I think in particular, because a community center has been talked about, you know, for several decades, there has been that time for people to develop history and feelings can change. So that's absolutely something that will need to be considered as the project moves forward. So the second factor is a project appeal. So how appealing did respondents to our study find the proposed project? And they felt mixed about it overall. So 52% had a mixed impression of the case for support. So, you know, we specifically asked, what is your impression of the case for support of the proposal for the town of Alta to build a new community center? So 38% had favorable, and then 10% had a negative impression. And this is a key number, because we consider a 65% favorable response to be a threshold indicator of strong community appeal. So, if 65% of our respondents feel great about the project, then, we say, oh, there's absolutely some traction there. So the fact that there were more mixed than there were favorable means that there is work to be done to move those mixed individuals in particular into that positive column in terms of the project. So I will say there was a general acknowledgement that there is a need for a community center. People were aware, that there was sort of a general, like, yes, this is something that would be a lovely asset to the town. However, respondents had, many questions about the project, the way it would unfold, and shared a variety of concerns. And they were similar to the ones that were heard in the internal interviewees, and I would add probably much more of a laundry list. Not everyone, many people had sort of, clearly their key issue that they wanted to see addressed as part of the project. And that, I think, also was driving some of that mixed finding. So the third key factor is the philanthropic environment. So really, this is a great project. So we found that the philanthropic environment is very favorable. There was no direct competition identified, which, is, I think, pretty obvious. This is such a large project. The size and scope of the project far exceeds anything that any other nonprofit in the town, is undertaking. They would most likely be partners on some level. And, I think even, looking further down the canyon and even into the valley, no one mentioned any specific capital campaign that would be considered to be a competitor. So that actually is a really good thing, because it means your project is unique, means you are the natural entity to embark on the project. So, and interestingly, the economic environment was not really considered a key factor. So, if the economy is tanking, and Dave and I actually, right, last year, well, in 2020, as COVID was taking hold, we had just started a feasibility study, like the first week of the shutdown, and that sort of tanked everything. And in this, people sort of acknowledged, we're continuing to see the impact of COVID-19, and who knows what's going to happen with the economy, but that was not really considered as a reason for the project not to move forward. What was definitely loomed much larger was the project definition, and really making sure that that was right as that readiness factor, rather than the timing. People were like, sure, like if it's the right project, go forth. So that's also I think a positive. So okay, the fourth one is really that availability of volunteer leadership. And in this instance, we did find that there is an adequate pool to get started in terms of campaign leadership and beginning to form what we call, a catalyst team, that campaign organizing and working committee. So, we do ask respondents to, say who comes to mind as a natural leader for this project, natural volunteer leader, someone who could, rally the troops and help open doors and really be a champion. And there were 18 names of individuals or couples mentioned. So people who came to mind, and that's actually a really good response. And I would say additionally, it was great because these were, it wasn't sort of random people who didn't have any ties to Alta. People, really understood that this would need to be someone who was present and visible in the Alta community. And 4 of those individuals were mentioned multiple times. And they all 4 of those individuals participated in this study. So that's really, really a positive sign. And then, so 32% of our respondents indicated a willingness to serve on a campaign advisory committee, which 32% may seem low, but it's actually really pretty strong. If you think of we interviewed 23 people, so we had 6 or 7 people who stepped forward and had a conversation with the stranger and said, yeah, I would be willing to consider that. I was very careful, and Dave as well, to say this is not a commitment, like you're not signing up right now. But the fact that people were willing to commit their time and say, yeah, absolutely, I would consider that. That is a really good starting point, because of course, should we recruit them successfully, that's a good core group already, but then we use them to recruit additional people and build that base. So, all right, so the last factor is really the viability of the goal. So can the town of Alta proposed costs, or the number that we were testing for the community center? And in this particular instance, respondents had low confidence in that $20 million number. So only 23% of respondents expressed confidence that the town could achieve that stated goal, and 59% were uncertain. So, at the outset, we consider a 60% positive response to this question to be that threshold indicator. So 60% or more of respondents, of course, we consider other factors, but if, we're above that 60%, that number just, on its face, it starts to seem pretty realistic. So, obviously that we were well below that. However, there was some really interesting nuance to this in that respondents consistently indicated their belief that the town of Alta, in terms of residents and people who care about the town and who come there to ski, that there absolutely were the resources and the ability to raise $20 million. So there was some confidence that, we could do this for the right project. And, it was just sort of that differentiating, like, the project, like, will the people who need to come in at those large gift levels support this project? That was where the uncertainty was driven. And actually, I will say, like, for a small community, and of course, most likely not surprising, very often in small communities, when we do these market analysis, it's just like, well, there's no one who could give a gift at that level. That goal is, up in the night. And that was not the case at all with the town of Alta. There was belief that the town could do it. So, and that just, does sort of drive, this next one, which is that there is an inadequate prospect pool for a traditional campaign effort. So capital campaigns are very structured. We sort of start with the top down gifts and move from the inside out. So people who are closest, largest gifts first. And for the lead gift phase, which in this effort would be gifts of 6 and 7 figures, traditional campaign numbers means that we would need to identify 112 potential 6 and 7 figure donors in order to close about 28 lead gifts. So, if we need 28 gifts between 100,000 and, 2.5 million, we would need, approximately, 82 to 112. What that works down is about 3 to 4 prospects for every one closed gift. And, with all of the individuals that we spoke to, there were really not enough names of individuals, corporations, or foundations to sort of reach that threshold. So the last, piece of this philanthropic ability to raise the money is, we asked all respondents, is it likely that you or your organization would make a gift to the town of Alta campaign at some level? And in this case, you can see 64% of respondents indicated that yes, it was likely. Again, however, the big caveat was in order to, sort of frame this question, we did absolutely have to say, we're talking about a community center in general. We sort of had to redirect people to the idea and the vision of a community center and not say it will be this community center in this building in this land. We had to sort of broaden that piece of the conversation in order to get individuals to really think critically about whether or not they would support the project. And as you can see, 64% yes, and then, an additional approximately 14% were uncertain at this time. So the last piece, and then we will open it up for questions, are really where we landed, our conclusions and recommendations for this project moving forward. So we did, as I've walked through and sort of had my howevers and walked you through some of the high level findings, is we do believe that a campaign between $15 and $20 million is feasible, with two really important modifications. You would have to engage in a capital campaign effort using a non-traditional campaign structure, which means high levels of support from a very few key donors. So a traditional capital campaign is high levels of support from a few key donors. And, in order for this effort to be successful, we believe that there are a very few key people who would really need to be engaged and willing to commit at the highest levels in order to get to that project. And then, and this is, I think, the critical thing is that the project scope must be adjusted in a way that will secure these high levels of support. And again, there were a laundry list of factors and concerns and questions. And, in order for this project to be moved forward, the project definition and sort of vision would need to be adjusted in a way that answers those questions in a way that gives people confidence that this is the right thing to go, and really keeps that door open for these high levels of philanthropic support. So, and, one of my favorite things is a philanthropic gifts table. And, just to sort of give you a sense of what we're talking about when we say very high levels of support from a very few key donors, is we put together this revised gifts table. And, really it would look like a lead gift of $5 million, two gifts of $2.5 million, and then, two gifts of $1 million, and, two gifts of $500,000. So if we were embarking on a $15 million project, 14 million, 90+% of the project, I'm terrible at math on the fly, would come from fewer than a dozen donors. And then, of course, we do advocate, as we do with any campaign, that there is a broad-based effort for community support. But, really finding those key donors and securing their support at those high levels will be critical for this project to move forward. So obviously there's some work to do in order to get that, because again, we got that favorable willingness to support number, not by talking about the specific project, but by just, inquiring about the support for a community center in general, is really, moving forward and addressing, concerns and building community support in a thoughtful way. So our recommendations is, working to reimagine the project and then build consensus for this new proposal over a period of time. And really critical to this will be to engage these potential campaign lead donors and leaders in the reimagining. So this is not something where we can go away, come up with another idea, and then come back and say, here it is, because I believe that we would most likely end up in a very similar position. It needs to, those donors and prospects need to be brought along and really need to be, invested emotionally as a part of the process as they work to meet the needs of the town. So, once that happens, we would move forward with revising the case for support, which is really just a foundational document for any capital campaign. It's not necessarily the brochure, but it's, really just how we use it to sort of build the next steps. And then, of course, build community support. And Dave and I talked a lot about this, but really doing that in a thoughtful, strategic way, potentially with outside public relations counsel, really, having a sustained effort to build support for a community center in the town. And again, build support for the reimagined community center over a period of time. So, and then just sort of the last piece of it is, moving into a campaign is a very large undertaking. And so, we would advise that you would look at an active campaign period of up to 27 months. Could be shorter in this instance because you would have fewer donors to work with, rather than trying to get 28 lead donors. Maybe you're trying to get 10 or 12, but really planning on that time to organize the campaign, move into active gift solicitation, plan on that quiet phase and then a public phase. And then, offer a flexible 3 to 5 year pledge period, which is something that we also assess as part of our study. And the last two are, I think, particularly important for the town of Alta. Is as you move into a campaign, consider hiring campaign counsel. So the campaign counsel would develop a full campaign plan, with timelines and metrics and outcomes. And Dave always says, well, you can do a capital campaign without hiring outside counsel, but it's going to take longer and be more painful. And I think in particular, because the town of Alta doesn't have an active fundraising arm as town functions, that will be critical to keep that plan moving forward and keep things organized. And then, there will need to be a campaign manager, whether it's an employee of the town, a contractor, really someone who can help volunteer leadership succeed. So the volunteers will be the drivers, but you absolutely need someone who's professionally managing the process. So, those are, I think, just three key factors to consider as you move, into the next steps and hopefully into a campaign. So, thank you. I do think, Jen, I'll defer to you. I think we've got a little bit of time for questions.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was wonderful. Yeah, we have about 10 minutes.
Thanks, Amberly.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Is that good?
That's great. Yeah, 10 minutes, I guess, if the council would like to ask questions.
Well, I'll say that it's been really great to work with Pathways, and it's always interesting. It's easy to, when you see data, it's easy to look back and say, oh yeah, that's not surprising, but it's good to have that documented that way. And I think that what you found is consistent with the reactions that I've experienced. That people like the idea in abstract, but they're not so sure about what it takes to actually go forward in a concrete way.
That's right on, Mayor. That we heard a lot of different comments, and everybody has kind of a either a pet peeve or a pet thing that they really want to promote. So we felt that you had great potential to develop a town center, but it's going to need some work in terms of building consensus. And that's what I was thinking.
And I think the timing of the report, of the study and of the study got started a while ago, so things were different. But the situation today, here we are on December 8th, is that, we're going to have a new mayor and a new town council in a few weeks. And so it'll really be a ball that we hand off to them to decide what to do with that.
And I will say, obviously things were that was a moving kind of ball as we went through. And, that was absolutely something that respondents mentioned. But I would say by and large, they were able to sort of look at the community center project, like aside from, any potential leadership change. It was just like, I understand that I'm talking about the project and I'm not talking about current leadership and, whomever that may be.
Yeah. Okay, good. Anybody else want anything, have a comment? John, do you want to say anything? No? Okay.
I was just going to comment that it seemed like the first recommendation was spending the year to reconceive the project and build consensus. Do you have specific recommendations on that, as it seemed that there was a list of at least 5 different things that lacked consensus: the site, the project, the scope. I don't remember all of them now, but do you have a recommendation for how to do that, particularly with a 12-month kind of time frame to accomplish it?
It would be beyond the scope of our, of our expertise to recommend exactly how you would do that. But some things, are a little bit more obvious. One of the most important things I think that the report reveals is that, you really need to, if you're looking to depend on support from some people who can give a heck of a lot of money, they really need to be involved. There's an old adage in fundraising: if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. And so we really think you need to ask for advice. You would probably have to go back into a reimagining program. Some of what, a lot of work's been done and a lot of answers can be answered. I think what has not been accomplished, at least, is that, there is not a sense that, well, yeah, you would like me to donate, but I know nothing about this project. And so that's really, I think, the biggest message coming out of this, is that involve the people that can help you the most.
And I would just add to that, I think, sort of with the factors that were identified as kind of pain points or things that would need to be reimagined. I think as you engage in a collaborative approach and have conversations, really understanding, what are the absolute no's, what are the we can get to yes, where those are. And sort of, strategically, picking your battles as you move forward. Because, I don't believe that there will ever be 100% consensus on anything in the town of Alta. Just in my limited experience. And so I think that really approaching it with that, okay, like, let's engage in a collaborative process and understand, the benefit to the most people and what will please the most people. And then, the things that we can't get consensus on or that are pain points, just understand that there's going to be that dissonance and disagreement always.
And so, Dave, I'm sorry, you broke up, but you said that your firm would not be the one that could help us move forward and kind of re-envision this. Did you say you were or weren't?
No, I don't think we would be the right choice for that. That's really an expertise.
This is pretty foreign to us.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I had no idea that there were professional fundraisers. So, this is an incredible project and it was really cool. But the reality, I loved the outcomes. It's helpful. It's not like nobody wants to support it. We know what they like and what they don't like. But so now we're going to try to figure out, what's our next step?
So architectural firms do this all the time. They create design charrettes, and they really walk through revisiting the needs of the community. What is it we need? And what is needed will be perceived differently by different factions of your community. Those who live on the hill, those who live in the town, and they all have different needs. Parking is a big, challenge. And so those folks are pretty professional, really professional at doing those kinds of things that lead to a program for design. Now, you've probably done some of this. I don't know. I'm not privy to that.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that Annie had talked to lots of people. So this is kind of like the community center that came up was the ultimate thing that would make everybody happy, except when it comes to paying for it and putting it in that specific site. So,
well, and I would say, John, I'm like a major gifts fundraiser. Like, this is my passion. And I would say, don't abandon all of that work. Like, really sort of take a look, as part of our recommendations, like, who are our 10 key supporters, people that we need. And then really, take all the work that Enia did and really sit down, like, have that relationship building, have that conversation where it's like, we are asking for your advice. We want to talk you through this. We want to hear your concerns. We want to respond to some of them and really do that one-on-one relationship building. This is just like major gifts fundraising. John, you're going to be a natural, but really just begin to build those relationships and understand those things. That's I think is like, that's what's kind of couched in that recommendation to engage those potential key major donors.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think I responded to Councilwoman Burke completely. There is a lot of commentary in our study. You can go back into our study and see what people actually said. And there's a whole bunch of different perspectives, but there's some themes that emerge from that. And those are the things that will have to be focused on, I believe.
Right, and I think that council members only got the summary and not the 76 page. Am I wrong?
I got the whole thing.
But that's available and it's really, okay, it's very interesting to read. I mean, it's enlightening for what we need to do to move forward, to fill that hole that we have now.
Thank you for the work. Is the whole study available on the town's website?
It is not.
We wouldn't recommend that you put it on the town website just because there could be some sensitivities in it. But I think anybody who wants to go in and look at it should, you know, especially among you folks, should be able to do that.
You can certainly request it from me, Sheridan, if or council members.
Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much, Dave and Amberly.
Thank you. It was a
you.
pleasure.
We would be honored to be involved at some future date. So stay in touch.
Okay.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible action on the Alta Chamber Visitor Bureau agreement with Chris Cawley standing in for Ms. O'Grady.
Hello, and thank you, Mayor.
We've
So
got 15 minutes to, allocated to 10 minutes allocated to this, Chris.
Sure, and you know, I do have some slides. I'll probably be clumsy in putting those up, and it looks like we're actually, you know, we're maybe a little bit deeper into the agenda that we'd planned to be at the end of the Pathways presentation. So, would it? And I have, the way that I tend to speak to slides means that I take up all the time that's available. So, would it make sense to take questions from the council off the bat, Mayor? To get those out of the way. I don't want to take all the time away from any discussion.
Well, I think it would be good, not only for the council, but for anybody else who's watching this, just to give a very short overview of what the decision entails.
Sure. So, you know, Alta Chamber Visitors Bureau is funded, has for a long time been funded in part by member dues, but largely by a regular general fund contribution from the town of Alta. That amount has changed over the years. I believe when I started working for the town, it was to the tune of $72,000 a year in monthly installments. Then it went to 84. As of fiscal year 2020, that was the amount that the town budgeted to contribute and did contribute to the chamber. You know, with the COVID year budget, we cut the funding for the chamber as one of the town's only kind of discretionary items by half. You know, the chamber went through a process of kind of reimagining itself. During the COVID year, we got started on a new chamber program. You know, that lasted about half that COVID year. We did not request any funding from the town because we didn't spend that much money. And as we know, the chamber has plenty of cash on hand for times like that. So the town didn't provide any funding to the chamber last year. The town did include a total of $42,000. So half the, you know, the previous annual funding amount for the chamber in the 2022 budget. And, you know, we wanted to come before the council today and just give an update on what the chamber's been up to this year, and then request a payment. And we discussed internally that, you know, while the town, the previous practice had been for the town and the chamber to be in an agreement that gets, you know, basically gets executed annually in order for that funding to pass from the town to the chamber. So, you know, I know that material did not go out until about 48 hours before the council meeting, and but I hope you had a chance to look at that. The agreement itself is more or less the same agreement that the town and the chamber were in almost to the letter in previous years. Again, we didn't enter into that agreement for last fiscal year. So that was the purpose of getting on the agenda today. And I can, I can put the slides up if that's interesting to anybody, or we can take questions off the bat.
Let's see what the council members have questions or have something to say, or would you like Chris to continue, although he'll run out of time shortly?
Yeah, we have about 6 minutes left in this agenda item.
I had a couple questions. It seems to me a couple years ago, Harris, you raised the question about the ROI and that we still didn't have a metric for our contribution to ACVB and how that was actually coming back to the town in terms of revenue. And I didn't see in any of the materials anything about an ROI metric and what our advertising target is, what kind of money we're looking to get back. It looks like the member contribution is weak, less than 5%, and yet we're committing to this level of support. So can you identify for us any more information about the return on investment?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, I think
Sure.
it was because
Sure. So let me just, the member contribution, we invoice for dues on January 1st or 2nd. That is just a late dues payment that came in. So we won't take in any of our annual dues until later in the fiscal year. I mean, the subject of, how diligently we collect the dues we're owed has come up in the past. So we'll say that last year we've collected dues from like 30 out of 31 members or something like that. Yeah. And I think we kind of took the stragglers off the website. So that's in the membership agreement. And I expect, given the level of engagement we've had on chamber initiatives and positive feedback from members, that we should be able to collect member dues in a similar fashion this year.
Margaret, where did you? I missed the notion that when you said it's only 5%. Where did you? Can you give me a figure for that?
Well, I was just looking at the staff report where the member dues were $21K and the contribution to date was $895.
Oh, I see. Right.
So it may be that was one member, or as Chris said, it may be that it was just money from last year. So that's where I came up with it.
Okay, because I remember hearing a year or so ago that they had worked pretty hard to change that.
And kudos to
at least
Rosie
at the back of the year. Let's put it that way, if not at the beginning of the year. Yeah,
Rosie O'Grady, single-handedly secured member dues. But I think it is a function of membership being more engaged. And to the ROI question, Margaret, and that's something that we continue to be cognizant of. We do, our major marketing initiative of the year is under a Utah Office of Tourism grant, which we in past years we've received quite a few UOT grants in the past. We're really excited to have clinched this one for this year. It's a $7,500 award. We'll match with the same amount. We have to show ROI as part of our reporting for that grant in order to kind of get a final payment, I believe. And so just for the campaign related to that, or for the marketing work related to that campaign, we'll be trying to evaluate, year over year differences during the campaign periods of room nights, event attendance, sales tax revenue, things like that. And of course, digital marketing is, it's easy to track digital marketing. It's not always that easy to translate that into revenue, but there is kind of there are some lodging booking options as part of that time well spent campaign that should make it easier to track. And part of this is the campaign is really depends on participation from the lodging entities in particular. So hopefully that will make it easier to understand, what the impact was on booking.
I did get the impression that over the last couple of years that ACVB was certainly more engaged with, let's call it, opportunities for partnering. That was my impression. As I mean, I am quite aware that I brought this up, Margaret, and part of it was to push them to care about the issue, although I'm not sure that I really expected a very clear answer. You know the line of John Wanamaker's that he said that 50% of my marketing budget is wasted. The problem is I don't know which 50%.
I think I've heard Cliff say that too.
About his own marketing budget?
Well, I think he has some experience with that maybe, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is in the agreement itself, and I'm not sure what other language, and particularly when you say that this is the same agreement language we've used in the past with minor change maybe in timing, but that the marketing program is to increase and support tourism in the town on the terms and conditions of the agreement, and yet targeting tourism when we're already dealing with limits on parking for both winter and summer. I'm a little anxious about that.
Maybe we should say targeting pedestrians.
There you go.
So I appreciate that. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I make a couple comments on that? Yeah, just to offer the perspective of management of one of the lodges. Very, very few of our hotel guests bring a car to Alta. Some do, but very, very few. And so to increase lodging in the wintertime and then by extension ski area visitorship, it's not really very much of a parking issue, very, very attenuated. The other comment that I'd like to make about the leadership of ACVB, and thank you so much, Chris, and I want to make a shout out to Rosie and everything that she's contributed, and by saying that, not to in any way, forget about all the other strong efforts of the members, but it kind of reminds me of how, for years and years at the Alta Lodge, we went through the process every year or every 2 years of hiring a new person to run the store, which is just an amenity for lodge guests. And, to bring in a seasonal person on that every couple of years just really wasn't working. And so it was after Dave Davenport brought the Alta store to the Alta Lodge that we had some ownership and continuity and made much more of a success of it, and contributing to the what the lodge is able to offer our guests. And in the same way that the current leadership of ACVB, I think is great. Sarah Gibbs and Ace is a huge part of that. I think that was a genius stroke. And so, I feel great about the leadership that ACVB has these days.
For my part, I'll say I do want to thank Chris. Thanks for for saying that, Cliff, not just for the presentation, but your hard work as a member of their organization and as the liaison with us. You know, I support this because we asked them to make some changes and they responded. And I think that it's kind of good faith for us to give them a little bit of rope, so to speak, you know, at this point.
I was going to say, I agree. I feel like my time on the council, the presentations and the questions that the council has asked over the years, I mean, ACVB has definitely, you know, responded what they can with management changes and like partnering with restructuring. And we've seen a big change. And I feel like we should continue to support them. And I think we'll continue to see some good improvements moving forward. And so I feel like every time we've asked them to do something, most of the time they've come back to the table with a change. It takes time, like they've had some turnover in staff, but I feel like over the years it has happened and maybe we'll see some more changes.
So I think we don't, what is this? This isn't a resolution. We just need a motion to execute this contribution agreement. Is that correct, Polly?
That's correct.
And can I just had one question about the contract. It says it's a semi-annual payment. It's obviously kind of past dated that it was effective in June. So upon signing it, they'll get the first installment. I was just wondering if maybe we should specify when the second installment would happen. It's over our fiscal year, just so that we have some predictability with that.
I thought the effective date we were talking about was July 1st and that the last payment would be June 30th or thereabouts.
Okay, so if the council,
the first contribution would be on July 1st and the second would be on June 30th? No,
I'm sorry. July 1st to December would be the first 6 months of the year. So that would be your first.
Backdated it.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
yeah. So the first payment is going to happen once you sign this, unless you've already, because I don't think you would have
Right.
issued the money until this has been done.
And
then
this has been budgeted.
right. So
Yeah.
then if I could just ask for, if you're just going to vote on it, just an amendment to say that the second payment will occur January 15th or something like that, so that it's just clear when that payment happens.
Second payment would be in June of 2022. Yes. We
Well,
haven't.
You can do that. The contract expires June 30th, 2022. So will the second payment be June 1st? That's all I'm asking. You guys can do whatever legally. I just wanted to have clarity so that there's not confusion.
Well, I mean, it would seem to me that we ought to make, I don't know exactly how their cash flow works, but you know, in terms of our schedule and our activities, it would seem to me that a November and May disbursement before the ski season to help market the ski season, but maybe that's already too late. I don't know. Chris, you can weigh in on that, or maybe Cliff, you have a good sense of that. And then in May, in case the town, you know, closes because of COVID or something, they would just be a creditor like other people. But at least we wouldn't have spent the money ahead of time and, you know.
Yeah, this contract is just for this 1 year. So it's backdated to July 1st, but it expires June 30th, 2022.
Yeah,
So
no, I saw that. I was just thinking about the disbursement dates.
well, because we're past November.
Yes. No, yes.
Did we want to leave the second payment to the next council to decide? And so this contract would instead be for the payment of the first half. And then once the budget is looked at in June, the council decides whether or not they have funds to be able to make this contribution.
Yeah, I thought the agreement said something about that, about the town reconsidering this the second half of the year, and depending on their financial situation, they could agree to make that second payment. Is that in there, Chris?
I think the language is the town may contribute generally.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be up to the next council.
As I read it, says that the town shall deliver to ACB a semi-annual payment of $21,000 following execution and the effective date of this agreement.
That's the first one, right?
And then the next paragraph relates to contingent matching funds, and not to the second semi-annual payment, but we're saying that we would not exceed 42K. So is there an implication that there is an additional 21K, or are you saying that that additional 21 is not committed?
I think that's a question to you, Polly.
Well, the way, I mean, I haven't been involved with the negotiations, just reviewing the contract. It looks like you're promising 42 grand, and it's unclear when the first payment's going to be when you sign it, and the second payment is going to be at some point semi-annually, but that's unclear.
Right.
And then I agree with Council Member Burke that the only thing that's contingent is those matching funds that we might want more. That's my reading.
I guess my feeling, I mean, I'm sympathetic to Margaret's point for sure, as I made this very similar argument about a few minutes ago. But it's also the case that people need to be able to plan. And so I'm a little concerned about making it piecemeal. It makes me think a little bit about the federal budget.
Yeah, here. I agree with that point. Mayor, ACVB is a small organization and should be able to count on and plan for the support that the town's committing.
Yeah, some of their contracts, for example, may depend on, that second payment. So how about I'll make a motion that the second payment is due on June 1st, that we amend this agreement to have a second payment due on June 1st.
Second.
Okay, any discussion about that amendment to this agreement? Well, actually, I guess we need, before that, I'm sorry. I move that we adopt this agreement. So. Okay, now I would move to amend the agreement to include a second payment due date of June 1st. Cliff, I assume you'll second that.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, is there a no? I didn't keep count, I'm sorry. No, I don't see a no. Okay, any discussion on the main motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, I think that's all aye, but no no's, right? Yeah, okay, so thank you, Chris. You can take that. You can take the first 21,000 to the bank when we write you a check.
Great, and I will make these slides available. I thought they were pretty good slides, and I think there's some good stuff on there that you'll appreciate. Margaret, I really appreciate your attention to that term in the clause, and we had a great conversation at that September event about what ACVB does and the council and all that. So thanks.
Good, thanks. And I know how it is to not get done with all the slides. That happens to me.
Oh, it's a relief. Thank you.
Occasionally when I'm teaching. All right, good. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Alta ski area update. Mike Maughan, is, I think, still around with us, Jen. And if you could elevate him and let him know that he's got 10 minutes. Let me see, do I still see him as an attendee?
No, he's in the process.
Oh, there he is. He's moving.
It takes a second there. So Mike, I think you're with us. And
hello, Mike.
Hi. Hey, the good news is the ski area is open and people are skiing and they're having a lot of fun. Our business levels are about the same as they were last year. If we compared, the same time frame, the same number of days that we've been open as to last year, maybe a little bit ahead. We are seeing that demand is looking like it's going to be strong, even stronger than last year, as we hear from bookings at lodges and what we're seeing on our website and those type of things. We've already, the first 2 days of our reservation system, which are December 18th and 19th, all of the reservations we released in advance, which was about 50% of the parking, have been booked. They're already booked. So we will be releasing the balance of our parking for reservation for that weekend on Sunday at 3:00. That's when that would be released. We find ourselves in the situation where the best skiing in the West right now happens to be here in Little Cottonwood Canyon and particularly at Alta. Continue to get rave reviews that are there. So that's kind of what's going on there. We're trying to still working out. We've been working with the town on trying to figure out how to manage parking and demand. We find ourselves in the situation that we just have more people that want to come to Little Cottonwood Canyon than we can accommodate during peak periods and early morning periods. And so we continue to work on a very complex problem that to some degree the sands are shifting under our feet at times, it feels like. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, rumor and stuff out there in regards to that. But we continue to, we're continuing to try to work out and figure out how do we accommodate this wide variety of user base that we have here that ranges from people that need a parking spot maybe for 2 or 3 cars on weekends to lodges that need parking for guests that vary all the time, to property owners that are here all the time, to property owners that are here some of the time, to employees and other people that want to come and recreate. And some needs are early in the morning and some are on weekends and some are night and day. And it's quite complex and been a challenge. What has proven out over the last few years is that first serve, first come parking isn't working. And when we look what happened last year, the parking frenzy that was created in early mornings and the number of people we turned around, we've just got to this tipping point where we've got to manage it. And so our goal continues to be, how do we manage this parking in the times when we have the pinch points, that which is our peak periods and early mornings are the 2 times that we have issues with. And so we're trying to implement a plan that can accommodate still and provide access for a lot of those users. But the reality of it is it has to change, and not everyone that wants to come can come. And that's why we've had to move to reservations and some restrictions. And we're trying to implement this in a way that accommodates as many as we can. It is a monumental task. As your team has spent hours and weeks and months doing this, we have the similar thing happening on our end. But we are fairly confident at this point in time, after some additional meetings with Interstate, that we have parts and pieces that will allow us to accommodate to some degree the wide variety of groups that are out there. And we're hoping we continue to while the MOU as drafted isn't going to work going forward, we are still open to trying to come to some sort of an agreement that helps the town of Alta and the ski area accommodate all the needs in our Alta community, if we can, going forward. So that's kind of all I have, unless you have any questions.
One thing, Mike, I know that there have been years where we've done great as a resort because we've had great snow. And then there are years where we've done pretty well because we have not great snow, but better snow than anybody else. And that's one of the big advantages of our location, I think.
Actually, our busiest years are drought years.
Yeah, that's because there's nobody can ski in California or wherever.
Right. Well, that's one of the challenges I think we have to face as a broader community, as if climate change continues on its trajectory and lower elevation resorts lose more and more of their snow, they're going to be in a position like they are today. We'll put more pressure on the resorts that do have ski in the short term. At some point in time, way down the road, maybe it disappears altogether. But in the short term, it puts more pressure on us. And that's all the more reason for us to try to figure out how to start managing demand. And so people can come with that insurance that they have a place to park and go recreate or go to their cabin or their job or whatever it is.
Okay.
Mike, thanks for that presentation. May I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Thank you. And I really ask this from the heart. So there are a lot of rumors around town that I hear from different people. And the reason I ask you is because I don't actually believe that this is true. But this story has a lot of legs. And the idea is, when I hear it from various people, that the ski lift company is very angry with the town of Alta because we didn't give you more parking, and that a lot of what's happening between us is out of revenge or bitterness or just a sense of we're going to show you. And I really don't believe that that's the case, but it is a rumor that has a lot of legs. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
I can address that. Probably goes back to several years ago when we were trying to work out the addition of some parking as a solution. And some have thought, well, because you didn't get your parking, now you're implementing these other scenarios and taking, and that's not, we at that point in time, we felt that if we could have added 250 parking spots, it would have alleviated some pressure on it until we could have got whatever the EIS and stuff was going to put into play. That was not able to come to fruition. And then COVID kind of hit us and accelerated, if you would, the parking issue to the point where, last year we turned away 15 days, we turned away cars for 3 hours. We had another 15 to 20 days where we had more people parking in the town of Alta and coming to the ski resort than we were comfortable with, and people were parking all over. We had a number of days we couldn't get our lots plowed because too many people were here. We had days when we were full by 8:30, 9 o'clock with thousands of people and no amenities really to service them. And so it all highlighted that, it's time to do something. And so we were the ones, as we looked at it initially, and recognized that the town of Alta does not have sufficient parking to accommodate the needs of the residents and the businesses and such that are out there. We were the ones that approached the town of Alta at first and said, hey, can we work out something to help accommodate that and make it work both ways? Initially we thought that by putting parking into Grizzly and working through something on that end could work through that. We've talked about shifting sands. Harris will attest to this, that the rules that we seem to be working on seem to be changing a little bit, for us all. And so as they have shifted, we've continually tried to find something that will work, and we're still committed to doing that. I mean, we recognize, and with Chris and I have worked closely together and have gotten a much broader understanding of the variety of needs of the various users here in the town. And we've been working to try to figure out, how do we put something in place that can accommodate the wide variety of users, but also use the parking, effectively when it's needed, when in those peak periods. And that's where we're really still trying to get to. And, there's just a lot of hurdles and, things in there. I heard a lot of public comment about everybody's saying we're taking away public access and picking on the backcountry users. Well, the reality of it is there's more people that want to come early morning or to come and go backcountry skiing than we can accommodate anymore. So we have to manage it. We still want to provide that opportunity. We have a plan to provide some of that, but we can't accommodate everybody that wants to come is the reality. And so it does necessitate change. And we're trying to do it in a way that gives first priority to the Alta, the Alta skiers, the Alta community. And when we have surplus parking, or when it makes some sense, we can make that work. We can offer that parking to others. That's what we've always done. That's been the intent. The challenge is, that's what we do with Grizzly. We own Grizzly Gulch primarily, almost all of it, and all the land on the north side of this canyon is primarily private. We've never closed it. We've kept it open for people to recreate on. We want to continue to do that, but we've got to do it in a way that it takes care of the Alta community, takes care of the Alta skiers who have spot season passes and expect to come and be able to use them. And if there's a surplus, we're more than willing to let others use what's there. So complex issue, a lot of moving parts, and we're continuing to move through it. The thing to remember is, our reservations are on peak periods. It's 40 days during the year, and it's 8 to 1 o'clock primarily for all of the public as a whole. We've got to figure out how we take care of all of the overnight guests and those others a little. It may be a little bit more restrictive in its time frames, but that's necessary to be able to, so they know they have a parking spot. So that's what we're trying to work through.
Thanks, Mike. Mayor, I just wanted to keep us on track.
Okay, Mike, I just want to let me say thank you, and also, I do want to say that we, and I mean the ski area and the town, have indeed been working in an environment where the context has not been clear, and I got pretty exercised about that with the Forest Service and UDOT yesterday on a call that you were part of. So that is a frustration, and I understand that we probably share that to some extent. Yeah. And I want to say to everybody on the call that do not have the feeling that there's any disagreement about policy that the ski area and the town have been expressing through the persons of Mike Bond and Harris Sondak. It's not about us personally, and it's not a question of trying to stick it to each other at all. That's my sense, Mike. So
right, I think we're really trying to solve the problem, and we have both have a different set of parameters to some degree we're working through, and each of us have actually different capabilities as what we can do within the parameters we have.
Well, that's why the understanding the context is so important, because that's not quite perfectly clear. I think, Margaret, I cut you off. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question for Mike, and that's whether or not you can identify the priority of users and how you're going to accommodate them, since all recognize that there's not adequate parking for all who are desirous.
So I would tell you, if I was prioritizing the parking, that's a little bit of a challenging question, because if I was saying I was just looking at my special use permit parking, my priority is going to be to take care of anything associated with the operations in the special use permit and those guests. But we have tried constantly to be more of a member of the Alta community as a whole. So my priority would be to say, first and foremost, it's got to be, the skiers that patronize and come to Alta and the Alta community, everyone that supports this community and is part of this community. And then, just to be frank and honest, people that want to come and recreate here, we're willing to support that. Many of our skiers do that. Many of our employees do that outside the ski area. And we've tried to keep our lands open and provide that. And so they're down there, but I'm not giving them a priority over the Alta community or the patrons that come to ski in the ski area. That they would have the first priority, just to be honest and frank.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
And the forecast is for a little bit of snow.
We're excited about that. This is a great base we have, and you put a little bit of a foot or two of snow on top of this, and there's going to be some good skiing.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Chief Torgerson with us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So we, like many employers, are facing some challenges with personnel, in particular our paramedic ranks. So we conducted a paramedic lateral hire recently, and we're able to entice 4 paramedics to come work for us. It's people who are experienced or were currently working elsewhere. They're just finishing their
Jay,
training.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second and tell Chris Cawley to take off his headphones. No, it was a joke. It was a joke. I don't want you working for the fire department. You're too important to the town. Jay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Chris, I'll give you a shout afterwards. We've onboarded those 4 and continue to work forward with our other process, hiring new folks, but we'll continue to have those opportunities for experienced people that we're trying to attract to Unified Fire. But with our jobs, you have plenty of time to do another job on the side. So there you go, Mayor. You can keep Chris to work part-time or even full-time with you.
Maybe I'll apply.
A little bit of a COVID update. As an agency, we're doing really well. We have 90% vaccination rate within our organization. We do not mandate it. However, we strongly encourage all of our employees. We are in the middle of a vaccination booster clinic right now with all of our employees, trying to encourage them to get their booster vaccine. I've seen in your community, Dr. Ken has done a great job of making those available to your community as well, and as has the Snowbird Clinic down in that area of the canyon. Quarter to date call volume. So from October 1st to December 8th, there have been 11 calls in the town of Alta. 3 of those are fire calls. 8 of them are medical calls. Last month, I was able to provide kind of a data sheet, and I got with Councilman Burke afterwards to review some of that data, and some of it needs to be tweaked a little bit so it's more understandable or maybe more useful. I'm hoping and pushing towards just getting Alta the ability to log into our system so that you can have access to the system that we pull our data from. I think it would be useful for you to be able to just look at all of those numbers and see what is happening within your town as well as within the canyon at large. So we're working on being able to provide that to you all. We've been busy working with our other public service providers in the canyon, our public safety providers, planning for the season when it starts to get busy for all of us. Planning with both UDOT and with Mike and his staff at Alta Central, making sure that during those times when the canyon is closed, if there are emergencies in the canyon, not only are we able to get 113 to be able to respond to those emergencies, but a plan on how we would get additional resources into the canyon and how we could do that safely. So those conversations are happening and are in the works. I'm not sure if this is the last council meeting for some of you. Will you have one more? This is it.
This is our last one for some of us.
I just want to say thanks to Councilman Burke or Councilperson Burke and Councilperson Curry. You guys have been fantastic to work with. The entire council is wonderful to work with, and then also Mayor Sondak, who is vacating a seat with the UFA and the UFSA board. You all have been fantastic, very open and transparent, and I believe want to do what's best for your community. So thank you very much. I look forward to our paths crossing in the future, and I look forward to whoever the town of Alta puts forward to be on our board in the future. So thank you. Any questions for me?
Right back to you, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I mean, one of the I guess unhappy parts of leaving elected office is I won't be on the board of the UFA. It's a great organization. It's had great leadership in my time on the board, and you've been part of that, and really appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you all.
Great.
Be safe.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
You too. All right. The next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible action to approve the financial statement and the audit of, is Steve Rowley still around? We're a little bit behind schedule now, so I hope that he's.
Actually, he's not around. He asked me if I anticipated any questions, and I said no. He's on the road driving back from central Utah, so.
So you let him concentrate on driving. Sounds
Yeah.
like a good
I did
plan.
tell him I'd call him if you had any questions.
Okay, so this is just what do we have to do here? I'm not seeing a document. Hold on, sorry.
No,
R19.
this is just.
That's the budget, is the R19.
This is just a vote to approve the statements and the audit.
All right, does somebody want to make a motion to accept the statements and approve the audit?
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? It's hard to argue with a totally clean audit. I guess we could amend it and say, Piper, there should have been a problem, but that would be pointless. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I don't think there's any opposed. So thank you, Piper, for your good work and coordinating that with Steve, with the auditor and with Steve.
Thank you, Counsel.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our November 11th council meetings, the minutes from our November 16th meeting to canvass the election results, treasurer's report, and staff reports. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
There was a lacuna of some information around the vote for the Planning Commission candidate, which I forwarded to Piper, and I unfortunately do have to leave our council meeting, but that's in writing, and I would want that included for any approval of minutes going forward.
I can read the email which talked about the Sheridan's objections to the minutes.
Okay.
It is not that long.
I apologize that I have to leave the meeting for work commitments, but I'll follow up. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sheridan. Have a good evening.
Oh, last night. Okay. I don't think the minutes accurately reflect the vastly different legal opinions offered on whether Harris had the right to appoint a new planning commission member at this time based on the town's ordinances. Councilman Curry did not state, based on the SoundCloud replay and my recollection of the meeting, his conflict of interest in voting for a candidate that is his employee. It bears mention that none of the three candidates that expressed interest in the role and their relative merits were discussed. And all of these issues are pertinent to the official record of the vote. So the minutes aren't representative of these problematic but important issues, which I worked to raise and spoke to during the last meeting. Thus, edits are required. She said, I spoke directly to the first two issues during the last meeting and will raise them again if need be tomorrow to have them included in future minutes.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, go ahead, Cliff.
I would defer to our attorney on this. But since my name was mentioned, I didn't disclose that as a conflict of interest because it's not a conflict of interest.
My understanding is that that decision is up to you.
Yeah,
Holly?
and just in terms of the minutes themselves, I mean, they have to reflect what was actually said. So to have a discussion of what should have been said or what the implications of what was said, unfortunately, doesn't come into minute taking. And so I would rely on the town clerk who's listened to the audio of this to ensure that it reflects accurately what was said.
My impression, Piper, is that when you send the minutes around as in draft form and receive comments on them, that you are pretty diligent about going back to other sources and checking the recollection or the impression that people are asking you about, and that that the version that you distribute for the town council meetings is after you've made an assessment of what needs to be changed, given what's been requested to be changed. Is that correct?
That is correct. And as I understand minute taking, you do not talk about what doesn't happen, you talk about what does happen. So I did not mention not speaking about the relative merits of the other candidates. I recorded the motion and the seconding and some of the discussion. I think what you all added some suggestions on that, which I included.
Yes.
And yes, I'm sticking to the accuracy of the minutes, so.
Okay. All right, well, then I think we should, I think we have a motion and a second on, a seconded motion before us. If I got a little lost there, but okay, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then questions regarding departmental reports, which I guess we were just talking about in some sense, but are there other issues? All right, well, then let's move to the next item. I'm gonna beg your indulgence to put the budget item ahead of the mayor's report, because my mayor's report is going to be a little unusual, and basically it's my farewell statement. So if you don't mind, I'd rather close with that, if that's okay with the council members. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go to item number 11, which is a discussion and possible action on a resolution 2021 R19 adopting the amended fiscal year 2022 budget. I'll move that we adopt the budget that we presented earlier.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Apropos of my comment earlier, I just wonder if we should adjust downward the expected revenue from parking permits. I recognize that this is an amendment to a budget. It's not the final budget. So it's kind of a question why we're doing this now, again, with 60% of the council changing in a matter of days. Why we would feel the need to make this adjustment now, again, with as you said, so many issues still being up in the air regarding parking and the revenue that relates thereto.
Oh, I can address the reason for the reconciliation, so to speak, being in December, is that on the other bodies that I serve on, they're much more frequent than twice a year, which is what I've implemented since I've been mayor. But I remember before I was mayor and a town council member, I think we only did this in May. But my view of it is that the incoming council and the incoming mayor deserve to have the best information that they can have at the time that they start, which is why I think we have done this in the last few years at this time of year. So, but that was my thinking this time. If what we want to do is make, especially given the statement that Mike Maughan made about looking like a better year than last year at this point, and a statement that Council Member Curry made about his experience with his Alta Lodge manager hat on about their bookings looking pretty good. I would not have an objection to adding a little bit of on the sales tax to lower the expected revenue from the parking by, say, $10,000, which I think is a reasonable assessment. But I mean, if you want to make that make a motion to amend the motion that's before us, Margaret, to that effect, I would be fine. Personally, I'd be fine with that. I can't speak for the other two council members who are here.
Yeah, I will make a motion to amend the attachment A to this resolution to increase the sales tax projection by $10,000 and decrease the projected revenue from parking by the same $10,000.
I'll second that. I think that it's likely to be a more accurate worksheet than the one that we presented to you last week, given the information I have today. And that's I mean, as you heard, we're not done with this process, but I think that all you can do is base these decisions and projections on what you know right now. And I think that that's a fair thing. Any other comment on the amendment that Margaret has put before us?
Are you seconding it, Harris?
Yeah, yes, I seconded it. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any discussion on that. Let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, Piper. I think that was 4 ayes. Okay, and now to the main motion, which is to adopt the budget as just amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's all. That's 4 ayes, Piper. So since we only have 4 council members present, there's no no's. Thank you, everybody. Okay. There are other items on the agenda, but let me point out, I mean, the items 12 and 13, we don't have a memorandum of understanding before us that the Alta ski area is interested in signing. So I don't think there's really any discussion or possible action on such. And on item 13, it is not clear today that the Utah Department of Transportation is a party that manages parking in the town of Alta, except, actually, I don't know that there's any parking in the town of Alta that that we have to come to an agreement with UDOT about, because it would only pertain, it won't pertain to our private ground. And if everything else is on the Forest Service ultimately. And in the conversation yesterday, UDOT told me that it's an issue for the Forest Service through what is the expression, Polly? The preeminence of the federal government or some language like that. So,
Yeah,
so there's
I agree.
nothing to be done here.
Right. We don't have agreement anyway in front of the council, so there's nothing.
Right. We were hoping we would have one for you. And
We're in limbo, and we've tried our best not to be, but unfortunately, that's the position we've been placed in.
I have a question, and that's, we have the ordinance still in play, and that ordinance refers to an MOU, I thought. Is there anything that we need to do about our ordinance in light of the changes that we're talking about?
Cameron, if you don't beat me to it, I think that I can say that no action is needed. Yeah, the ordinance was designed, there isn't anything we need to do right now because there is still light at the end of the tunnel in some form. The ordinance was designed to allow the flexibility to develop a plan, and whatever we need to do to develop that plan is what we're going to continue to try to do. If at some point all options are exhausted and there is going to be no plan, then the town would need to rescind that ordinance. But we're not there yet. We still have the flexibility within what we've done to try and get something finished.
Yeah, we have not sailed off the edge of the earth yet.
But it should be said that the town marshal's office is not providing services to the lots, the Alta, the areas within the special use permit, because nothing has been implemented.
Yes, at the moment, that's the situation.
And I'm glad to expand on that if needed. We continue to provide our police services everywhere within the town. There are, however, some legal problems to us continuing certain parts of parking enforcement present day, and we're hoping get resolved.
Okay. We did not include new business on this agenda because this town council will not be back next month. And so it didn't seem exactly appropriate for this town council to put new business on the agenda of the next town council. So I would like to just close with saying something about my, I want to focus my mayor's report on a differently this time, since this is my last town council meeting.
Mayor,
Yes.
do you want me to do the dog stuff first?
Ah, yes,
With
thank
that?
you, Jen.
welcome.
That's
Sorry
right.
to
That would be
interrupt.
part of the, thank you for interrupting me because I had asked you exactly to do that.
Mayor, could I also add or request one other point? I think that the role of the mayor is a special one, and so you should have the last word. But so before that, so that you have the last word, maybe there's might be.
Yes, that's really a good idea, Cliff. I'll ask Margaret if she wants to say something, and then I'll ask you, and then I'll close. But before we do that, Jen Clancy, tell us about the dog licenses.
Okay, temporary dog licenses issued with a start date between November 8th and December 6th. Kathy Moore for 14 days, starting on November 8th. Scott Lomley for 30 days, starting on November 9th. Kevin McDonald for 3 days, November 12th. Noel Byrne for 2 days, November 25th. And Sophie Danforth for 2 days, November 28th. That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Council Member Burke, you want to say anything before we close?
Just that it's been my honor to serve the community of the town of Alta and the citizens within Alta, and I'm not planning to go anywhere. So I look forward to seeing people in an unofficial capacity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Councilmember Curry.
Well, at the end of their terms on this body, I would like to recognize Mayor Sondak and Councilmember Burke for their outstanding, really extraordinary intelligence, dedication, understanding, and hard work that they have brought to their roles on this body. For myself, I'm going to keep it real short. I'd like to thank the citizens and the voters of the town of Alta for giving me the opportunity for the past 14 years to serve. I would like to thank all of the terrific colleagues that I've had over the years on the town council and in the mayor's office. like to give the greatest possible recognition to the town staff, to John, Piper, Chris, Jen, and don't want to leave anybody out. There's a lot of professionals who bring to bear a lot and are really everything that a public servant should be, but got to give special recognition to our town marshal and the deputies and the department of the town marshal who lay their lives on the line and dedicate themselves to public safety of the town, and really are everything that peace officers should be. So thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cliff. So I first want to thank Cliff Curry for, I think it's 17 years of service as an elected official of the town of Alta.
Mayor, I really should not interrupt you, but it's only 14.
Oh, I got it wrong. Okay, I actually had I guess I'm a little scattered this week because I've been not getting a lot of sleep and I've been arm wrestling with the ski area, but okay, 17 years. I actually had a joke about it being almost as long as my undergraduate students are old, but Cliff, you've been diligent in your efforts to promote the town's interest, and you've been an important resource for me personally in this role and as a town council member before I was in this role, and for our community. When I think of some of the contributions you've made, some of the zoning of various kinds sticks out in my mind as a project that you've made, several projects that you've made a big contribution to our town for. And had a positive impact. And I really have benefited from your insight and experience, and thank you. I want to thank Margaret Burke for also serving on the town council. Margaret clearly brought her talents and experiences as an attorney to bear on many aspects of the job. She has been, you're apparently tireless in your efforts to make sure that what the town council decides is clear and accurate, and there's no doubt that our actions have been made better thanks to your guidance. I ran for the town council 11 years ago because I thought that my experience as a business school professor would help me help the town, help me help our community. It's part of my upbringing, and I hope my character to work toward making the world a better place. And in my professional career, I have kind of dedicated myself to that. Being mayor of Alta is a more complicated job than anyone can anticipate, except perhaps for John Goldner, who I think knows very well how complicated it is, but has kept it a secret from all possible candidates because otherwise he would never have a boss. The various issues, the overlapping jurisdictions, the prerogatives of the Alta ski lifts, the unpredictability of revenues, given our reliance on weather, all make this well, let's call it an interesting position. I mean, all of those issues came up even in just this one town council meeting. The staff and I think, have made a lot of progress in these 4 years. The budget is sound. We've moved projects along. We've created strong relationships with our many partners. The staff as a whole has been great. I want to call out the staff as being critical to the success that we've had. They love Alta with a depth of feeling that it's just stunning to see the level of care that they have for our community. They work long hours for not enough pay, and they deserve our thanks. I want to say something particular about the people I've worked with most closely. In recent months, I've spent a lot of time with Chris Cawley. Chris, your motivation, your concern, your energy on behalf of our community is a standard that few people will ever achieve. It's really remarkable. Jen, I have learned that you are entirely reliable. And when I ask you to get a task done, I have no doubt that it's going to be done and it's going to be done well. Your experience before joining our team, I think, has grounded many of your insights as an official for the town. Piper Lever you've grown into your role in an admirable way, and I could always count on you to provide an important perspective on decisions I had to make. And you're going to be missed because, you know, I hope I'm not spilling the beans, but Piper has let me know that she'll be retiring in the spring, and those will be big shoes to fill, and I'll be sure to throw in my 2 cents with Roger about how to do that. But it will not be an easy transition for anybody to take on what you've done. And just tonight, to take a couple of examples, I think that you handled the issues that were in your wheelhouse in a really stellar way. So thank you. John, your memory is something to behold, as is your knowledge of the details of our community. If you are invaluable for that depth of knowledge. If you ever think about retirement, somebody is going to have to download what you know. You can't leave until the singularity has occurred. How's that? Because I think you need to be sharing that knowledge on your way before you leave. And I came to rely on John over the years in a really important way. Mike, Maury, you are one of the wisest people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. I've learned a lot from you as our marshal. Your integrity is unquestionable. Your work ethic is awesome. I never thought, and I don't think many people think of police officers as being sensitive people, but Mike is. He is a guardian who takes to heart the troubles of those for whom he assumes responsibility. And he has a huge heart, and my heart goes out to you. Alta faces challenges. You all probably know them well. Traffic, congestion, growth in Salt Lake County, maintaining our autonomy, climate change. I wish the new mayor and the new council the best of luck. It's going to be needed. In closing, I want to say that I've strived to be the best trustee of our community that I could be. I thank this, like Cliff, I thank the citizens for giving me the opportunity. And like Margaret said, it has been an honor to serve. I admit that I'm looking forward to having one fewer jobs and being more available to my family, but I will miss many aspects of being the mayor. So thank you. All right, I guess all we need is a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
I move to adjourn.
All right, well, I guess it's the, Elise?
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna miss you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think you have you're going to have an interesting team, a talented team to carry on with, Elise. So I think that will be a good opportunity.
Elise, are you seconding that motion?
Oh no, I was gonna leave that to Cliff or Harris to do. They need one more thing.
Okay.
Cliff, go ahead, because I get to say we are adjourned.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.